Chapter 992. 50 Genes? Are you still asleep? In the Yinshan residence, Li Zixuan almost spat out the food in his mouth after hearing Li Tai's words. At the same time, he cursed this little fatty in his heart. Although he had bean sprouts at home, it probably didn't even amount to 50 genes. If this wasn't an exorbitant demand, then what else could it be? Is 50 genes too much? It's not much, Yamacho. 50 genes of bean sprouts isn't enough for me to eat for a week. Li Tai fiercely picked up a large chunk of bean sprouts and put it into his bowl. That small porcelain bowl suddenly became a small mountain. The little fatty fiercely stuffed food into his mouth as he quibbled with Li Zixuan. Scram, 50 genes isn't enough for you to eat for a week. Do you want to eat bean sprouts as rice? Li Zixuan really wanted to pick up the little fatty and beat him up. Li Tai vaguely said, let's exchange it as rice. I can eat 50 genes a week. Yamacho, if you don't believe me, then give me 50 genes of bean sprouts to try. You really know how to scheme. What good will it do me to let you try? No way. Li Zixuan wasn't an idiot. Why would he fall for this little guy's trick? Hee. Yamacho, you can't say that. As the Yamacho of Yanhuang College, shouldn't you be concerned about the students of Yanhuang College? The college's cafeteria recently has only pickled vegetables and meat dishes. We really need these fresh vegetables. If it's really not possible, how about I exchange the vegetables from the imperial residence for bean sprouts? 1 genes for 1 genes? Li Tai bargained with a cheeky grin. Li Zixuan frowned and didn't say anything. Although Li Tai's words were somewhat shameless, there was some truth to it. If the human body didn't eat fresh vegetables for a long time, the immune system would likely decline. He didn't care about other people, but he had to care about the students of the college. He had to ensure that the students could study healthily. In a few days, there should be bean sprouts in the academy's canteen. After pondering for a moment, Li Zixuan said softly, Mighty Yamacho. Li Tai slapped the table and shouted excitedly, Don't be happy yet. I still have a debt to settle with you. Li Zixuan snorted coldly. Seeing Li Tai's stunned expression, he continued, I heard that you and Cheng Chumo were drinking at Gu Xiaomao's tavern last night. You drank for more than 2 hours, and all of you were dead drunk. Is that true? Hearing this, Li Tai's face fell. He quickly put down his chopsticks and shrunk his neck. He was a prince. Logically speaking, there was no need for him to be afraid of Li Zixuan. However, in the past year, Li Zixuan had conquered him with his knowledge and saved his life twice. Therefore, he couldn't help but respect and fear Li Zixuan. Yamacho, we were on holiday yesterday afternoon. It shouldn't be a problem for us to drink a little, right? The academy didn't forbid drinking during the holidays. Li Tai met Li Zixuan's aggressive gaze and braced himself. The academy didn't forbid students from drinking during the holidays, but students are not allowed to openly gather and drink in the academy. Gu Xiaomao has already broken the rules by selling the wine to you. I will settle this with him later. Li Zixuan snorted coldly and said. Li Tai was stunned and hurriedly said, Don't. Yamacho, this has nothing to do with Xiaomao. I was the one who forced him to give us the wine. The main responsibility is on me. Li Zixuan's eyes were cold, but a trace of relief grew in his heart. Probably no one would have thought that the high and mighty king of Wei, Li Tai, would actually plead for leniency for a lowly commoner in the eyes of the upper echelons of society. This scene would have been impossible to happen a year ago. However, Li Zixuan was gratified by this. A person who knew how to think for others, no matter how bad they were in the future, they wouldn't be too bad. For Li Tai to be able to do this, it meant that he had matured. The arrogant, headstrong, and temperamental Li Tai from history would never appear again. Husband, Xiaomao's family doesn't have it easy. Why don't you let them go this time? Han Yushi said at this time. Li Zixuan secretly praised his wife for pleading at the right time. In fact, he wasn't very angry. He just wanted to use this opportunity to test Li Tai's character. He played the bad guy, and Han Yushi played the good guy. Yes. Yamacho, it wasn't easy for Xiaomao to open a shop in the academy. His family depends on this shop for a living. Please don't punish him this time. Li Tai cast a grateful look at Han Yushi and quickly said. Li Zixuan didn't say anything, but pretended to be deep in thought. The atmosphere in the room was a little tense. Li Tai didn't care about enjoying the food at this time. He stared at Li Zixuan without blinking, looking a little nervous. Huh, forget it. Since it's your first offense, I'll forgive you this time. As for Gu Xiaomao, I'll send someone to warn him not to sell alcohol to students in the future. As for the few of you, each of you write a self-reflection letter and hand it to me before class next Monday. After some time, the little fatty's eyes were a little sore from staring. Li Zixuan finally spoke. Li Tai heard this and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. However, he was puzzled and asked, Yamacho, what is a self-reflection letter? How should it be written? Li Zixuan patted his head and replied, It's a self-reflection letter. It's similar to the self-reflection letter written by Emperor Wu of Han. Actually, in history, Lier had also written a self-reflection letter, but that was after the outbreak of the locust plague in the second year of Jingguan. There was no such thing now. Li Tai suddenly understood, but he felt that Li Zixuan's analogy was a little inappropriate. Okay, I'll inform Chu Mo and the others to write a self-reflection letter. Li Zixuan nodded and thought to himself, who can be more awesome than me if I ask the Tang Dynasty's prince to write a self-reflection letter? Let's eat. When the little fatty heard this, his mood improved. The hunger in his stomach made him transform into a glutton. The big plate of bean sprouts that Han Yushi had fried was all eaten by this guy in no time. However, he didn't touch the plate of braised chicken at all. Burp! Master's wife's cooking is really superb. Yamacho really has good taste. Hee, if there were more bean sprouts, it would be even more perfect. Next time, it's best to use a porcelain bowl. After finishing the bean sprouts, Li Tai took a glance at the braised chicken and instantly lost his appetite. He rubbed his stomach and sighed as if he hadn't had enough. Hee, since you like it so much, Chin-Kei, I'll cook another plate for you. Han Yushi stood up with a smile and said, Okay, my ass. Why sit down? This kid has been on a diet recently and is full. Don't worry about him. Li Tai cheered loudly, but Li Zixuan interrupted mercilessly. Someone had snatched all his dishes and wanted to trouble his wife to cook another plate. How could there be such a cheap thing in the world? Chapter 993. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Li Tai hummed a little tune and wandered back to the dormitory. He was in a very good mood. Firstly, it was because he ate the delicious bean sprouts. Secondly, he felt that he had helped Gu Xiaomao, so of course he was happy. This unlucky kid still didn't realize that Li Zixuan was deliberately testing him. Thirdly, when he left, he shamelessly asked Li Zixuan for more than 3 pounds of bean sprouts. Although it wasn't much, it was better than nothing. When he returned to the dormitory, Li Tai saw that there was no one in the dormitory. After thinking for a while, he guessed that Sun Zifen should have gone to the cafeteria to eat. The little fatty smiled proudly and put the bag of bean sprouts he got from Li Zixuan on the bed. Then, he rubbed his stomach and lay on his bed contentedly. He planned to go back to Chang and directly after taking a nap. Soon, a wave of sleepiness hit him, and Li Tai fell asleep in a daze. Sigh, it's so uncomfortable. Everything I eat doesn't taste right. I don't know where Chin-Kei went to eat at noon, but I didn't see him in the cafeteria. On the path of Yanhuang College, Sun Zifen, who had just come out of the cafeteria, muttered gloomily. Logically speaking, it was hard to have an appetite after waking up from a hangover. Don't tell me he's already back in Chang'an? F***CK. That's too much. He didn't even tell me when he went back to Chang'an. That's not right. Why is there a sound from inside? Sun Zifen muttered indignantly when he reached the dormitory door. Suddenly, he heard a snoring sound, which made him a little suspicious. Sun Zifen took out the key from his sleeve and opened the door. Instantly, the snoring sound became louder. F***CK. This guy didn't go back to Chang'an. At least he has a conscience. Seeing Li Tai sleeping soundly on the bed at the door, Sun Zifen felt a little better. They should drink together and go home together. Yo, what's this? And it's wrapped so tightly. Sun Zifen was about to return to his own bed to sleep when he inadvertently caught a glimpse of a package of oiled paper at Li Tai's bedside. He didn't know what was wrapped in it, but it looked like there was a lot of things inside. Sun Zifen's curiosity was immediately piqued. Hey, could it be the delicious food that Qingke brought back from the academy? Huh, what a good friend. Then I won't hold back. Sun Zifen was trying to gauge Li Tai with the greatest kindness. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile, and his hands subconsciously reached out to grab the oiled paper package. Don't move. Without any warning, Li Tai suddenly sat up from the bed. Bang! At this time, Sun Zifen was bending over to pick up the package at the head of the bed. He was shocked by Li Tai, and his head hit the beam of the upper bunk. Ouch! F***CK. So Qingke, you haven't slept yet. Sun Zifen cried out in pain and staggered 2 steps as he angrily said to Li Tai, F***CK. Zifen, what are you doing? Are you peeking at me sleeping? Let me tell you, this king is not into men. Even if I was into men, I wouldn't be into men like you. Pooey, pooey, pooey. This king will not be into men, no matter what. Li Tai opened his eyes and saw that there was a man on top of his head. He was also frightened. After listening to Sun Zifan's words, he opened his eyes wide and said in horror, F***CK. You are the one who is into men. This daddy has always liked women, all right? I just wanted to see what was in the package at the head of your bed. Anyone who was slandered as a man would probably be angry. Sun Zifen actually called Li Tai daddy at this time. His guts were boundless. Package? Li Tai heard and heaved a sigh of relief. However, when he heard about the package, his heart jumped again. He hurriedly hugged the package at the head of the bed and said, F***CK, this is my package. You can't look at it. Seeing this, Sun Zifen was even more curious about what was in the package in Li Tai's hands. However, compared to this, he wanted to know more about another matter. Qingke, were you asleep just now? Li Tai rolled his eyes and said, Of course I was asleep. Sun Zifen was stunned. Since you were asleep, why did you suddenly jump up? Speaking of this, Li Tai was speechless. I just had a dream. I dreamt that someone was stealing my package, so I got up. F***CK. Who are you lying to? If you don't want to say it, then forget it. Sun Zifen was furious. He felt like he had been played for a fool. Li Tai was too lazy to explain. TSK, forget it if you don't believe me. After a while, Sun Zifen could not help but ask, Qingke, what's in the package? Why are you being so secretive? Li Tai hurriedly said, It's nothing. It's just some trinkets. Sun Zifen said in disbelief, Trinkets? What are you doing if it's a trinket? Quick, let me see what it is. After saying that, he went up to snatch it. F***CK. Stop it. It's really a trinket. It's definitely useless to you. Li Tai panicked and hurriedly hid the package behind his back. Sun Zifen was even more unconvinced. Hey, if you don't open it and let me see, then we'll just wait like this. If I don't sleep, you don't sleep either. Li Tai's fat face darkened. He could only accept his bad luck to have met such a shameless friend. He said in exasperation, F***CK. You win. Come here. I'll let you take a look. Let me say this first. You can only look, not touch. Yes, yes, yes. Of course. Sun Zifen agreed readily. Although Li Tai did not believe that Sun Zifen would do as he said, in order to avoid being pestered by this guy, he could only take out the package and open a small opening. Dozens of tender and white bean sprouts were immediately exposed. F***CK. I thought it was some kind of treasure. Isn't it just bean sprouts? Although the bean sprouts in the package were a little too white, no matter how white they were, weren't they still bean sprouts? After Sun Zifen saw it, he was instantly disappointed. Li Tai hurriedly wrapped the bean sprouts and said with a smile, I told you that this thing would definitely be useless to you. You didn't believe me. Sun Zifen waved his hand and immediately lost interest. He returned to his bed and was about to lie down to sleep when he suddenly remembered that there should not be so many bean sprouts in this season. Hence, he asked, Qingke, where did you get these bean sprouts? Also, why did you get these bean sprouts? Li Tai thought for a moment and began to make up a story. I got them from Yamacho. Yamacho asked me to take them back and plant them. He said that he wanted me to understand the principle of reaping what you sow. This is a profound knowledge. Reaping what you sow, son Ziffin muttered a few words. Inexplicably, many doubts arose in his heart. But at this time, a wave of sleepiness hit him, causing his eyelids to start to droop. He could only go to sleep with doubts in his heart. However, a few days later, he would probably have the intention to kill Li Tai. What the F***ck do you mean by reaping what you sow? I really believed in your nonsense. Chapter 994. Wife, later on, asked Uncle Wong to purchase a batch of soybeans. The more the better. After purchasing them, mobilize all the servants in the residence to distribute bean sprouts. When the time comes, send a portion to the academy and another portion to the drunken immortal restaurant. Li Zishuan said to Han Yushi when he left the Yunshan residence in the afternoon. Yes, husband wants to start a bean sprouts business? Han Yushi responded and asked again. Yes, since we plan to introduce bean sprouts to the academy's cafeteria, why not take out a portion to sell in Chang'an City? If we don't make money, we're we if not fools. Li Zishuan smiled and said, actually, at the very beginning, he didn't plan to sell the bean sprouts. His purpose of making bean sprouts was to give his family a change of taste so that they could eat vegetables in this season. However, what Li Tai said earlier made a bit of sense. He was the Yamacho of Yinhuang College, and the students in the academy were all his students. He couldn't leave something good for himself and not share it. Therefore, when Li Tai left, Li Zishuan had already made up his mind to introduce bean sprouts to the academy's cafeteria. Since there were bean sprouts in the cafeteria, how could there be no drunken immortal restaurant? After all, no one would complain about having too much money. Oh, if you ask all the servants in the residence to help distribute bean sprouts, aren't you afraid that our method will be leaked? Han Yushi blinked and suddenly thought of a problem and quickly asked. Now, the bean sprouts in the Li family were all personally prepared by her, Xiao He and Xiao Shi, so naturally, there wouldn't be any leaks. However, if there were more people involved, then it would be hard to say. When Li Zishuan heard this, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he said coldly, if it's leaked, then so be it. It's not something valuable. Even if our family doesn't have this income, we won't collapse. Wife, just ask Uncle Wong to do as I say. Han Yushi's eyes showed some doubts, but she finally nodded and said, don't worry, husband. I will tell Uncle Wong. Yes, then I'll go to the academy. After saying that, Li Zishuan left the room. Feiji, for the time being, you don't have to stay by my side and protect me. Go back to Chang and keep an eye on the mansion. See if there are any servants acting strangely or colluding with outsiders. If there is, don't alert them. Wait for me to go back and deal with it. On the way, Li Zishuan suddenly instructed Pang Feiji, who was beside him. Pang Feiji was startled. After a while, he regained his senses. His expression changed as he said in a low voice, Marquis suspects that there is a spy in the residence. Li Zishuan smiled and said casually, no, I'm just trying to see if there's a spy in our residence. Han Yushi's words earlier had indeed given him a warning. Since ancient times, benefits had moved people's hearts. With his current identity and status, he could ignore the benefits brought by bean sprouts. But what about the others? Would others not care as much as he did? If there was no spy, then he would use the bean sprouts to make money. If there was a spy, then he would not lose out. He could use the bean sprouts to clean up the disloyal servants in the residence. This could prevent more losses in the future. In short, you can make a killing, but I will definitely not lose out. Pang Feiji was a little confused. He did not quite understand what Li Zishuan meant. Li Zishuan smiled and said, you don't have to worry about anything else. Just do as I say. Yes, Marquis, I'll return to Chang'an tomorrow. Pang Feiji bowed and cupped his fists. Add oil. Add more salt. It's too little. Add more. Add bean sprouts. Stir fry. Add onions. Add onions. Add more vinegar. In the evening, the chefs of Prince Wei's residence met their master, Li Tai, in the kitchen. They heard that Li Tai wanted to make a new dish, and that if they did not do well, everyone would be punished. All the chefs were under immense pressure. They raised their spirits and carried out Li Tai's orders meticulously. How did Li Tai know how to stir-fry bean sprouts? He heard it from Han Yushi in the afternoon. Now, the little fatty was applying what he had learned. He personally demonstrated what it meant to cook with one's mouth. Your Highness, can we take the wok out? The chef who was in charge of cooking felt that it was about time, so he carefully turned his head and asked. One cannot cook with one's mouth. Without the help of these experienced chefs, Li Tai would not be able to stir-fry a plate of fragrant bean sprouts based on the information given by Han Yushi. Most of the time, Li Tai would only talk about the general process. The specific details would still depend on the experience of the chefs. Yes, you could take the wok out. Li Tai went forward to take a look. Seeing that the bean sprouts in the wok were similar to the ones he ate at Li Zishuan's place, he hurriedly instructed the chef to take the wok out. Yes, the chef who was in charge of cooking responded. Then he picked up the wok and poured the bean sprouts into a porcelain plate that was prepared beforehand. The tender white sprouts were wrapped in oil droplets, reflecting the light of the setting sun that shone in through the window. It looked even more appetizing. The white porcelain plate, the white bean sprouts, and the emerald green onions made one's appetite even more aroused. The most unbearable thing was the fragrance of the bean sprouts that had just come out of the wok. The fragrance of such fresh vegetables was extremely rare in winter. Yes, not bad. There will be rewards for all of you. In a while, all of you can go and get your rewards from Officer Wu. Li Tai went forward and sniffed. He was in a good mood and said to everyone in the kitchen, Thank you, Your Highness. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly bowed to thank him. Li Tai was about to instruct the servants to bring the dishes to the main hall when he suddenly paused inexplicably, as if he had thought of something. After a while, he said, Fry the remaining bean sprouts and put them in the food box. This prince is going to the palace. Yes, Your Highness. The people in the kitchen bowed and answered. A quarter of an hour later, Li Tai carried an exquisite wooden food box and rode a carriage toward the palace. Reporting to Your Majesty, Prince Wei requests an audience. West Court of the Imperial Palace, Empress Zhongxuan's bedroom. Li Er was eating with Empress Zhongxuan when the palace maid outside the door suddenly came in and bowed. Qin Ke, let him in. Li Er nodded and instructed the palace maid. Then, he looked at Empress Zhongxuan and said with a smile, Oh, how strange. This boy actually thought of his father and mother? Your Majesty, what are you saying? Back then, you agreed to let Qin Ke study at Yanwang College. Now that Qin Ke is busy with her studies and doesn't often enter the palace, Your Majesty is blaming her. Empress Zhongxuan smiled and exonerated Li Tai. Your son pays his respects to father and mother. While chatting, Li Tai had already walked in. The little fatty carried a food box in his hand and couldn't salute, so he could only bow. Chapter 995. Dispense with the formalities. What is that in your hand? Qin Ke. In the Li Zheng Palace, Li Er was sitting cross-legged on the couch. Seeing that Li Tai was holding a food box, his curiosity was piqued, and he asked. A smile immediately appeared on Li Tai's face. He took a step forward and said, Replying to Imperial Father, this son happened to come across a delicacy today. The taste is very good, and I specially brought it for Imperial Father and Imperial Mother to enjoy. Li Er's eyes lit up, and he immediately said, Oh, what delicacy is it? Quickly bring it up. Zhao Song quickly took the food box from Li Tai's hand, opened it, and brought it to Li Er and Empress Zhongxuan. Then, a silver needle quickly popped out from his sleeve and fell between his fingers. Just as he was about to secretly check if the bean sprouts were poisonous, Li Er grabbed his wrist and pushed it to the side. His meaning was self-evident. Tender and white, fragrant, and with soybeans stuck to the tail. Is this a bean sprout? Li Er glanced at the things on the plate, then looked at Li Tai and asked, Your Majesty, this shouldn't be a bean sprout. Firstly, there shouldn't be so many bean sprouts in this season. Secondly, bean sprouts from the ground shouldn't be so white. Empress Zhongxuan's observation was very detailed. After hearing Li Er's conclusion, she softly retorted, Oh, it really isn't a bean sprout. Maid Guanyin is indeed attentive. Lier looked carefully and found that it was as Empress Zhang's son said, so he changed his words. Qin Ke, quickly tell Imperial Mother what kind of dish this is. Where did it come from? Empress Zhang's son said with a smile. Mother, this dish is called bean sprout. It is raised with clear water and change the water daily. When the stem is an inch long, it is stir-fried in a pot to obtain this delicacy. Li Tai stepped forward and answered. I see. Empress Zhang's son was enlightened. Then she said, Qin Ke, you haven't said where this bean sprout came from. Could it be that you asked the servants of your mansion to train him? When she said this, even Empress Zhang's son herself didn't believe it. Her own family knew her own matters. Li Tai was a person who liked to eat and didn't like to move. Wasn't it making things difficult for him to do these things? Replying to Imperial Mother, this bean sprout was obtained from a Yamacho family. This son did not create it myself. Li Tai replied honestly. Marquis of Yong'an? No wonder. Sure enough, it's easy for greedy people to discover delicacies. After Empress Zhang's son finished speaking, the corners of her mouth couldn't help revealing a trace of a smile. Li Er coughed lightly, interrupting the mother and son's conversation. Then he said, I've only been talking about it. Guanyin maid, quickly taste it. See if this dish is as good as Qin Ke said. After 20 years of mutual help, Empress Zhang's son knew that Li Er truly wanted her to try first, so she didn't refuse. She reached her chopsticks into the plate, picked up a few bean sprouts, and then put them in her mouth. Her eyes seemed to brighten a bit. How is it? Li Er asked. Yes, it was fragrant and juicy, crispy and sweet, with a hint of sourness. It was very appetizing. Your Majesty, please try it too. Empress Zhang's son smiled and said. Li Er nodded, picked up a bean sprout with his chopsticks, and put it into his mouth. Yes, not bad, not bad. After eating a bean sprout with his chopsticks, Li Er praised. Goo-goo-goo. Just as Li Er's voice fell, a series of goo-goo-goo sounds suddenly came from the main hall. He saw Li Tai with one hand on his abdomen, his face full of embarrassment. Actually, at this moment, the little fatty wasn't embarrassed at all. Instead, he secretly rejoiced. Abdomen, abdomen. UF Asterisk King made a contribution again. Well said, well said. Hee. So you need Qin Ke either? Come over quickly and eat with Imperial Father and your Imperial Mother. Come, add a set of chopsticks for Prince Wei. A trace of warmth flashed in Li Er's eyes, and then he ordered. Many thanks, Imperial Father. Li Tai had been waiting for this sentence. Hearing this, he eagerly rushed over. Yo, Dr. Qin, Dr. Wang. The next morning, Li Zishuan went to Yanwang College after breakfast. Once he entered Guanghua Building, he met Dr. Qin and Dr. Wang from the Imperial Medical Department. The two of them were talking to Li Gang, and behind them were two young men in white clothes and white hats. Marquis is here. When Dr. Qin and Dr. Wang heard this, they quickly bowed. Li Zishuan smiled and helped them up, saying, The two of you don't have to be so courteous. But what is the matter today that brought the two of you all the way to Cloud Mountain? What a distinguished guest. Quick, please come in. Li Zishuan didn't only admire these two doctors from the Imperial Medical Department for their medical skills, but also for their character. As the saying goes, doctors have a benevolent heart, and these two were truly benevolent doctors. A moment later, they arrived at the meeting room on the first floor. After taking their seats, Dr. Qin smiled and said, Marquis, this old man has already resigned from the Imperial Medical Department yesterday. After Brother Wang found out, he also resigned from his position. Today, we're here to seek refuge with Marquis. Li Zishuan had already guessed the purpose of Dr. Qin's visit, but when he heard that Dr. Wang also came to seek refuge with Yanwang College, he couldn't help but feel a burst of joy. That's great. You two came at the right time. Yanwang College's medical school has already begun preparations, and the academy's medical hall has already been set up. Moreover, the daily necessities have already been prepared. I'll have to trouble the two of you to first set up the academy's medical hall to solve the current problem of the students. Next year, we'll prepare for the medical school's enrollment. Li Zishuan's face lit up with joy as he said. Dr. Qin waved his hand and said, Everything else is fine, but now that Brother Wong and I have resigned from our positions in the Imperial Medical Department, Marquis, please don't call yourself doctor in the future, lest you become a laughingstock." Li Zishuan chuckled, then shook his head and said, "Although the two of you are no longer doctors in the Imperial Medical Department, you will soon become doctors in Yanhuang College's medical school. Therefore, it's not inappropriate for me to call you that just now." Li Gang, who was sitting to the side, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows when he heard this, but he didn't say anything to oppose. Dr. Qin and Dr. Wong looked at each other, and finally, Dr. Qin said, "Absolutely not. I've heard before that Yanhuang College's doctor selection requirements are very strict. The two of us have just entered the academy, and we haven't even made a single contribution. If we were to be conferred the title of doctor by Marquis, I'm afraid that others won't accept it. I hope that Marquis will take back his order." Li Zishuan smiled indifferently and said, "If anyone doesn't accept it, let them come find me. The two of you have worked so hard to protect everyone's health, and you deserve to be awarded a doctor. I'd like to see who else won't accept it." Li Gang finally opened his mouth and said, "Yamacho is right. Yinshan is remote, and it's extremely inconvenient to see a doctor. If a student is sick, they have to be sent to Chang'an City. Therefore, the Academy's medical hall is very necessary. The two of you should also be worthy of the title of Doctor of the Academy." Chapter 996. Thank you for your trust, Marquis and Mr. Li. In the conference room, the two doctors from the Imperial Medical Department cupped their hands and said to Li Zishuan and Li Gang. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, "You don't have to thank me. As long as the two of you can help run the Academy's medical center, it will be the best reward for me. Later, I will give you a copy of the medical center's regulations. In the future, all the medical centers in the Tang Dynasty will follow the Academy's medical center." Dr. Qin said solemnly, "Marquis, don't worry. The two of us will do our best." Li Zishuan smiled and looked at the two young people behind Dr. Qin and Dr. Wong. He asked, "The two doctors haven't introduced them to us yet." Dr. Wong hurriedly said, "Oh, look at our memory. Marquis, they are my and Brother Qin students in the Imperial Medical Department. He is Zhou Zichang and Gao Guangwen." When they knew that Brother Qin and I were leaving the Imperial Medical Department, they dropped out of the Imperial Medical Department and followed us here. The Imperial Medical Department was not only a medical institution that served the royal family and the dignitaries, but also an institution of higher learning to cultivate medical talents. During the Tang Dynasty, the Imperial Medical Department had more than 300 medical students at its peak. It could be said that it was the largest medical institution in ancient times. "Oh, Zhou Zichang, Gao Guangwen, why did the two of you give up the great future of the Imperial Medical Department and come to Yanhuang College?" Li Zishuan asked curiously. The two of them looked at each other. Finally, Gao Guangwen cupped his hands and said, "Marquis, a teacher for a day is a teacher for life. Wherever master goes, we will follow." Zhou Zichang nodded, showing that he agreed with Gao Guangwen. Li Zishuan looked at them with appreciation and then laughed. "Ha ha, good. Those who value friendship and righteousness will be rewarded with good fortune. The two of you can stay in the academy. After the medical department is established, you will be medical students." "Thank you, Marquis." When the two heard this, they hurriedly cupped their fists with joy. Li Zishuan chatted with Professor Qin and Professor Liu for a while more before he left. The results of the monthly exam had been tabulated, and he had to go take a look. As for the Academy's medical center, it was managed by Dr. Qin, Dr. Wong, and Li Gang. Nothing would go wrong. Chang'an City, Yongla Lane, Lord Ho's mansion. Today, the Marquis's mansion was unusually lively. Housekeeper Wang Zhong had bought 4 carts of soybeans from the West Market, which added up to about 1,000 caddies. All the servants in the mansion were assigned to work, moving the soybeans, carrying water, washing the soybeans, and washing the pots and pans. It was as if the new year was coming. It was very lively. "Sambao, bring someone to the kitchen and get a bucket of water." "All right, young madam." "Afu, bring a few people to help Uncle Wong unload the soybeans." "Yes, I'm on my way." "Xiaohe, get someone to wash these gauze. We need to use it later. In the front yard, Han Yushi was commanding. Now, all the internal affairs of the Li family were under her control. Li Jingma and Mrs. Li rarely interfered. The old couple was now living a leisurely life. If there was anything they were dissatisfied with, it would be that they were short of a grandson. After all, when people got older, they especially liked children. Yes, young madam. Xiao He responded and skipped down to make the arrangements. Xiao Shi, let's go see if the first batch of soybeans is done. Han Yushi said again. Yes, young madam. The master and the servant walked towards the backyard. In the main hall, the old lady of the Yi family said with a smile, It's lively. Yuju, although there are not as many people in this mansion as in Nanyang, without the scheming, it's more lively. In a big family, there were many open and secret struggles between the branches and the first and second branches. Of course, the Yi family was no exception. The old lady of the Yi family had stayed in the Li mansion for so many days, and she liked the atmosphere here more and more. Yi Guozhong's old face darkened. Was this a roundabout way of scolding him, the former head of the Yi family, for not managing the Yi family well? Mother, it's not the new year yet. It's even more lively during the new year. Yi Yuju sat beside the old lady of the Yi family and said with a smile, Hee. Good. My family's Yuju is indeed blessed. Mother is also blessed. This time, the mansion got so many bean sprouts. This old one is blessed. The old lady of the Yi family narrowed her eyes, and her face was full of happy smiles. At the same time, her heart was full of gratification. Before she left for Chang, and who would have thought that there would be such a perfect ending? Now that she saw that her daughter and grandson were living well, how could she not be gratified? I'm afraid that it won't be long before the method of making bean sprouts is spread out. At that time, want to be a wedding dress for others? Xiao Xian didn't consider it thoroughly this time. You can't be too hasty in everything. While everyone was laughing and chatting, Yi Guozhong said something that ruined the atmosphere at the wrong time. Master, I think you're used to fighting and scheming with people in Nanyang. How can the servants in this mansion be as bad as you say? I don't think there will be anyone gossiping outside. The old lady of the Yi family said unhappily. Yi Guozhong didn't give up and said, Madam, you can't say that. As the saying goes, people's hearts are hard to predict. If it's 10 people, you can ask them to work together. But if it's hundreds of people, it's too difficult to ask them to work together. People chase after benefits. As long as there are people who want to give benefits to the servants, they will definitely not hesitate to tell the method of making bean sprouts. That's why Xiao Xian didn't consider it thoroughly this time. Yi Yuzhu pursed her lips. It could be seen that at this moment, her heart was very tangled. Finally, she gritted her teeth and said, Father, your daughter and Jing and Mo have always been kind to the servants. We have never been overly harsh. Although people chase after benefits, your daughter believes that the Li family servants will not do such a treacherous thing. Yi Guozhong sighed and said, Ai, then let's wait and see. Father Li, who was in the room, didn't say anything from the beginning to the end, but in his eyes, there seemed to be a flash of light. Yin Xiang, why do you think young madam suddenly bought so many beans? In the backyard of the Li family, Lana ran off to play somewhere. The maids were washing the beans diligently, while the servants were helping to carry water from the well. One of the maids, who was slightly plump, asked in a low voice, How would I know? Besides, Leonor, why are you asking? The other maidservant who was asked answered as she washed the beans. The maid named Leonor hurriedly said, No, nothing. I was just casually asking. There was a noise at the door of the courtyard. Maid Yin Xiang quickly said, Young madam is here. Don't talk, quickly wash the beans. Chapter 997. Hey, Iron Egg, he's practicing Taiji. At the Han village, Old, who had just returned from the market in Chang, and when he saw Iron Egg practicing Taiji under the haystack at the entrance of the village, he was already used to it. After all, every weekend, the villagers would see Iron Egg practicing Taiji here. Yes. Uncle Hu, did you go to the city to buy meat again? Iron Egg stopped and turned around with a smile. In the past, the Hu family had a dumb son and a blind daughter. Everyone sympathized with Hu Hanyan. But now, the dumb son had become a student at Yanhuang College, and the blind daughter had become the only disciple of the miracle Dr. Sun Simiao. Hu Hanyun, who was pitted in the past, had become the object of envy. Hey, sure enough, it's rare for that kid to come home. Your uncle who went to the city to buy 2 caddies of meat for him. Iron Egg, come over for lunch. Call your father over too. Old Hu grinned. Iron Egg hurriedly waved his hand and said, No need, Uncle Hu. My father is probably cooking by now. Old Hu heard this and did not insist. After all, they were fellow villagers who had not eaten at each other's house before. 1 or 2 meals would not make a difference. Hey, that's fine. Iron Egg, if you have time, come and play with Taiji. Old Hu laughed and was about to leave when he suddenly remembered something. He stopped and said, Oh, that's right. Iron Egg, your uncle who heard something in the city. You might be interested. Do you want to hear it? Something to do with me? Iron Egg heard this and looked puzzled. He walked over and asked, Uncle Hu, what is it? Old Hu pointed at the haystack next to him. The two of them sat under the haystack. Old Hu placed the things he bought on the ground and said, Iron Egg, when your uncle who is in the city, I heard that the Lin family is looking for a teacher who is proficient in new mathematics for their young master, Lin Hao. His monthly salary is at least 5 strings of coins, and there is no cap. Do you want to try the Iron Egg? Iron Egg's heart skipped a beat. The monthly salary was at least 5 strings of coins, which was a very, very good job. No one would believe him if he said that he was not tempted. After all, not everyone had a mine at home, although Li Zishuan was his rich brother-in-law. Li Zishuan's wealth did not mean that he was rich. Most of the time, it was more comfortable to spend one's own money. However, he was still a little hesitant. Uncle Hu, I'm just a student at Yanhuang College. How can I be someone else's teacher? Aren't you making fun of me? Hu Hanyan repeatedly waved his hands and said, Hey, it's not like that. The steward of the Lin family even said that as long as you're familiar with the first volume of the new mathematics book written by a young master, they'll welcome you, even if you're a student. As long as you can guide their young master from time to time, it'll be fine. Iron Egg said in disbelief, There's such a good thing? Uncle Hu, are you trying to trick me? Hey, you child, why would I trick you? But this position is quite suitable for sure. Uncle Hu, why don't you let Sure give it a try? Old Hu smacked his lips and said, Hey, of course, your Uncle Hu wants that kid to give it a try, but at least your Uncle Hu knows his own limits. I know that Sure's mathematics results can't compare to yours. If you were to teach someone else, it would be a waste of their time. Besides, Tai Dan, can you guess why old Master Lin wants to hire a fortune teller to tutor his son? Iron Egg thought for a moment, and suddenly his eyes lit up. He said, Could it be that the young master of the Lin family wants to enter Yanhuang College? Under normal circumstances, no parents would be willing to spend so much effort to find someone to teach their son the new type of mathematics. After all, in this era, it was mainstream to enter the government through the study of classics. Now, the old master of the Lin family not only wanted to find a mathematics teacher for his son, but also a teacher who was proficient in the new type of mathematics. The only possible explanation was that the old master of the Lin family wanted his son to enter the Yanhuang Academy. Hu Hanyan gave him a thumbs up and chuckled. Smart. Iron Egg, there are still 8 to 9 months before Yanhuang College's entrance exam next year. At this time, many people in Chang and have already started preparing. The Lin family is just one of them. During Yanhuang College's entrance exam this year, your mathematics results were much better than mine, so it's better for you to go. Iron Egg lowered his head and thought for a moment. After a while, he raised his head and said, Thank you, Uncle Hu. I'll discuss it with my father when I go back later. Next, Hanli. South of Chang and City, Happy Lane, Lin family's front yard. A man in gray who looked like a butler stood at the door and shouted at the group outside. Yes, that's right, Bruiser really did come. What? Hanli? F*CK. Hanli, you actually came to my house? No. Shouldn't you be undergoing the heavenly tribulation now? After Iron Egg walked in, he saw 3 tables and 3 chairs in the yard. There were 3 people sitting on each of them. An old couple and a young man. As soon as he walked in, the young man jumped up and made a fuss. Iron Egg didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard that. It seemed that he had met a true fan of a legend of a mortal's journey to immortality. But this guy was a little too obsessed. Xiao Hao, don't be rude. Who else could this young man be other than Lin Hao? Lin Wenyuan saw that his son had lost his composure and hurriedly reprimanded him. Oh, Dad. Lin Hao shrunk his neck and replied gloomily. Lin Wenyuan looked at Iron Egg and sized him up. He said, Young man, do you know the requirements of the Lin family? Iron Egg nodded and replied, Of course I do. I'm just proficient in new arithmetic. Lin Wenyuan nodded and said, Young man, you're already proficient in new arithmetic at such a young age. Are you a student of Yanhuang College? Iron Egg was a little nervous. He said, Does Master Lin not want to recruit students? Lin Wenyuan waved his hand and said, No. No matter who it is, as long as they can answer my 3 questions, I'll hire them. Young man, do you have the confidence to give it a try? Of course. Master Lin, please give me the questions. Iron Egg cupped his hands and agreed. Lin Wenyuan clapped his hands and praised. Ha! Good. Young man, you're very straightforward. Then I'll give you the questions. Please listen carefully. The first question is, today, there's an object, but its number is unknown. 3 by 3 is 2. 5 by 5 is 3. 7 by 7 is 2. How many is the object? This was an ancient arithmetic question from Sun Tzu, Arithmetical Classic. The translation of this question was, There's a batch of objects, but I don't know how many there are. If you count 3 by 3, there will be 2 left. If you count 5 by 5, there will be 3 left. If you count 7 by 7, there will be 2 left. Question: how many objects are there in this batch? Although it was an ancient arithmetic question, it was still quite difficult for most people. However, for those who had learned new arithmetic, it was a piece of cake. Master Lin, I have the answer. In less than 10 minutes, Iron Egg had calculated the correct answer in his heart. Chapter 998. Oh, no wonder you're from Yanhuang College. You got the answers so quickly. Please tell me. Lin Wenyuan's eyes lit up, and the smile on his face became even more enthusiastic. Iron Egg smiled confidently and replied, I calculated the answer. It's 23. Is that correct? Lin Hao saw that Iron Egg, who was about the same age as him, could solve such a complicated math problem so quickly without using a pen and paper. He couldn't help but pat the table and say excitedly, Damn, awesome. Hanli, you got the answer so quickly. No wonder you're the legendary old Demon Han. You're so strong, and you're so smart. In the legends of a mortal's journey to immortality, Hanli was known as Old Devil Han because he was vicious and merciless towards his enemies, held grudges, and had many tricks up his sleeve. He was someone who refused to suffer losses. Iron Egg's face was calm, but Lin Wenyuan's face darkened. He reprimanded, Sit down. Yes, Dad. Lin Hao quickly put away the arrogance and excitement on his face and sat down obediently. Mother Lin glanced at her son and smiled. She thought to herself that there was hope now. Her son might be able to pick up his interest in studying because of Tai Dan. Seeing that his unfilial son was obedient, Lin Wenyuan looked at Iron Egg and praised. You're absolutely correct. I was going to ask someone to prepare a pen and paper for you to calculate, but I didn't expect you to get the answer just by calculating in your head. You're a genius, young master. Iron Egg smiled and said, Master Lin, please ask the next question. Lin Wenyuan looked at Iron Egg with appreciation and continued, Good. Young master, please listen to the second question. Han Xin points out the number of soldiers in a group. There are 2 soldiers in a group of 3, 3 soldiers in a group of 5, and 4 soldiers in a group of 7. Question: how many soldiers are there in this group? This was a famous ancient math problem, borrowed from the story of Han Xion's troops. Since ancient times, it had stumped countless people. Iron Egg repeated the question twice in his mind, and his face turned solemn. The problem was to find a positive number, so that 3 divided the remainder 2, 5 divided the remainder 3, and 7 divided the remainder 4. Moreover, It was hoped that the obtained number would be as small as possible. However, there was a relatively stupid method, which was to experiment and analyze. By constantly inserting data and increasing conditions step by step, the answer could be deduced. For example, let's start with the condition that the remainder is 2 by 3. The number that satisfies this condition is 3n plus 2, where n is a non-negative integer. In order to make 3n plus 2 satisfy the condition of dividing by 5 and leaving 3, we can substitute n with 1, 2, 3, respectively. When n equals 2, 3n plus 2 is equal to 8, and 8 divided by 5 leaves 3. It can be seen that 8 satisfies the two conditions of dividing by 3 and dividing by 5. The last condition was to divide 4 by 7. 8 does not meet this condition. We have to get a number based on 8 that satisfies all three conditions. So on and so forth. We will eventually find the correct answer. However, the disadvantage of this method was obvious, which was that it wasted a lot of time. Come, prepare the ink, paper, and inkstone for young Master Han. Lin Wenyuan saw that Iron Egg was frowning and did not speak, so he ordered the servants to get the ink and paper. Iron Egg said at this moment, "No need, Master Lin. I have already found the correct answer." Lin Wenyuan finally could not sit still. He stood up and exclaimed, "What? You already have the answer?" Iron Egg stood with his hands behind his back. After practicing Tai Chi for a few months, he stood tall and straight, and his temperament was outstanding. He was completely different from the young boy who only knew how to play mud with his peers. At this moment, he was like a peerless master who had personally come to the battlefield. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and he was detached from the world. Yes, according to my calculations, there are at least 53 soldiers in this group. Master Lin, is my answer correct? Iron Egg slowly said the answer to everyone's expectations. Lin Wenyuan's breath was a little short. He said in disbelief, "How is that possible? How can you calculate the answer in such a short time?" Little Lang Jun, tell this old man the truth. Have you ever solved this problem in private before? Iron Egg shook his head and said, "No. How is that possible? Young master, can you tell me how you solved the problem?" Iron Egg did not refuse Lin Wenyuan's request. He organized his words and said, "I have thought of a simple solution, but I don't know if it is correct or not. First, 3 times 5 times 7 equals 105. 70 is a multiple of 5 and 7, and dividing 3 by 1 is the remainder. 21 is a multiple of 3 and 7, and dividing 5 by 1 is the remainder. 15 is a multiple of 3 and 5, and dividing 7 by 1 is the remainder. 70 times 2 is a multiple of 5 and 7, and dividing 3 by 2 is the remainder. 21 times 3 is a multiple of 3 and 7, and dividing 5 by 3 is the remainder. 15 times 4 is a multiple of 3 and 5, and dividing 7 by 4 is the remainder. 70 times 2 plus 21 times 3 plus 15 times 4 is equal to 263 is equal to 2 times 105 plus 53. 53 divided by 3 is the remainder. 53 divided by 5 is the remainder. 53 divided by 7 is the remainder. 53 divided by 7 is the remainder. Therefore, there are at least 53 soldiers. Damn. Old Demon Han is awesome. Although Iron Egg did not explain in detail, and although Lin Hao did not know anything about mathematics, it did not stop him from cheering for Iron Egg. Because Iron Egg was so cool when he spoke so confidently just now. Lin Wenyuan did not reprimand his son this time, because he was not calm either. Clap, clap, clap. Lin Wenyuan could not help but applaud. He had inherited his father's business from a young age, and was very sensitive to numbers. Although he was not proficient in mathematics, he knew a thing or two. Although he did not fully understand Iron Egg's explanation, it did not stop him from applauding Iron Egg's innovative way of solving the problem. Black cat, white cat. A cat that catches mice is a good cat. Facts had proven that Iron Egg's method was faster and more accurate. That was enough. Brother Han, you are a genius. This old man admires you. Previously, There were many people who had come to participate in the selection who had failed at this second question. Who would have thought that little brother Han would come and find another way to solve this question in less than a quarter of an hour? Since ancient times, heroes have been born from the young. Today, this old man has broadened my horizons. There is no need for the third question. Brother Han, you have passed. I wonder if you are willing to be my son's tutor? This old man is willing to pay you 20 strings of coins a month. You don't have to come every day. According to the school calendar of Yanwang College, you just have to come every holiday. To be honest, my son, Lin Hao, is planning to take part in the entrance exam of Yanwang College next year. As everyone knows, Yanwang College emphasizes mathematics. If my son can be admitted into Yanwang College under Brother Han's guidance, this old man is willing to pay you 200 strings of coins in one go as thanks. I wonder if Brother Han is willing? Unknowingly, Lin Wenyuan's attitude towards Iron Egg had become much more respectful. He cupped his hands and said sincerely to Iron Egg. Chapter 999. No, old Master Lin, your offer is too generous. I can't accept it. Lin Wenyuan, Mother Lin, and Lin Hao all stared at Iron Egg, but Iron Egg shook his head after some thought. Lin Wenyuan and Mother Lin looked at each other. And then Lin Wenyuan said with a smile, Little brother Han, you don't have to be modest. With your knowledge, this salary isn't high at all. Even if I don't offer you this price, I'm afraid that other people with foresight will offer you the same price. So, I hope you won't reject it. Yes, yes, yes. This money is peanuts to my father. Old Demon Han, don't save money for my father. Spend it as much as you can. Lin Hao did not mind that things were getting out of hand and interrupted. The main thing was that Iron Egg was many times better than those old scholars in their 70s and 80s who only knew how to read. Moreover, although Iron Egg was young, his ability was not small at all. It was even easier to talk to people of the same age. Maybe he could be as awesome as Iron Egg when the time came. You child, what nonsense are you talking about? Mother Lin scolded Lin Hao angrily. Then she smiled gently and said, Little brother Han, Little Hao has been spoiled since he was young. He's a little naughty and mischievous. I hope you don't mind, but he's not a bad person. Don't worry. Iron Egg hurriedly said, Auntie Lin, you're too serious. Young Master Lin is honest and straightforward. I don't mind at all. Lin Hao was amused. He smiled and said, Hee, honest and straightforward? Old Demon Han, are you implying that I'm stupid? Iron Egg's mouth twitched a few times. He shook his head and said, Young Master Lin, I didn't mean that. Lin Hao acted as if he didn't hear Bruiser's words and continued to speak. Hey, this young master is just too lazy to delve into the bullshit ways of the world. The human heart is complicated. How can it be as carefree as reading novels at home? After saying that, Lin Hao, who had always been cynical, actually showed a trace of loneliness on his face. Iron Egg's heart skipped a beat. He cupped his hands towards Lin Wenyuan and said, Master Lin, I am willing to accept this position. As for the salary, it is up to you to decide. Lin Wenyuan laughed loudly and said repeatedly, Good, good, good. Steward, go and inform the candidates outside the prefectural magistrate that they don't need to line up. I've already found a suitable candidate. Give each of them a gift as my apology. Yes, master. The middle-aged man who brought the Iron Egg and bowed and replied, Today should be Yin Huang College's weekend. Han Xiao, why don't you start teaching my son today? Lin Wenyuan chuckled. Han Xiao. Today, the way Lin Wenyuan addressed Iron Egg changed again and again, becoming more and more respectful. However, Iron Egg still frowned and said awkwardly, Master Lin, I didn't prepare any teaching materials when I came. Why don't I teach young Master Lin another day? Lin Wenyuan waved his hand and said, No need, no need. The Lin Mansion already has the new mathematics teaching materials compiled by the Marquis of Yo. Han Xiao can start teaching now. Since the conversation had already reached this point, Iron Egg couldn't refuse anymore. He could only secretly praise Lin Wenyuan for being so well prepared. Then he nodded and agreed. That's good. I will start teaching young Master Lin today. Good. Little Hao, from now on, learn well from Han Shao. If you don't work hard, I will skin you alive. Lin Wenyuan fiercely glared at Lin Hao and sternly warned him. He couldn't be blamed for worrying. This son of his was really too infuriating. He had already angered 3 or 4 teachers. Oh, I will definitely work hard, Lin Hao replied gloomily. Then he brought Iron Egg back to his own courtyard and began studying. Old Demon Han. Mr. Han, can I ask you a question? In the backyard of the Lin mansion, Lin Hao suddenly asked Iron Egg after reading a few pages in Lin Hao's study. Young Master Lin, we are about the same age. You don't have to call me mister. Just call me by my name. Iron Egg hurriedly waved his hand and said with a look of surprise. At this moment, he had somewhat revealed his true colors. The expert demeanor he had in front of Lin Wenyuan and Mother Lin had completely disappeared. In fact, the calmness he had in front of Lin Wenyuan was all an act. To be exact, he was imitating his master, Li Zishuan. Otherwise, how could he have intimidated the knowledgeable Lin Wenyuan in the front courtyard? The reason why he had instantly agreed to Lin Wenyuan and Mrs. Lin's request was mainly because he had seen Lin Hao's honest and straightforward side. He understood that there was no need to hide anything when dealing with such a person, and he would definitely not be at a disadvantage. But I might as well call you Old Demon Han instead of Han Li. How about I call you that from now on? The honest and cute fat otaku would not struggle with the issue of how to address him for too long. Lin Hao scratched his head and directly wanted to change Iron Egg's name. Iron Egg's little face darkened. He said unhappily, "No, you can call me Iron Egg. That's what all my friends call me." Iron Egg? Could it be that you're... Oh. Impressive. Impressive. Hearing this, Lin Hao's eyes widened. After he glanced at Iron Egg's crotch, his expression suddenly became incomparably wretched, and his face revealed a despicable smile. Scram! Iron Egg wished he could kick this damn fatty back into his mother's womb. He had met many despicable people, but he had never met such a despicable person. Just kidding. Iron Egg, don't mind it. Actually, I still think that the name Old Demon Han is more domineering. Do you want to consider it? Lin Hao laughed heartily. He truly felt that Iron Egg was a very interesting person. He was not like those rigid, smelly, and stubborn teachers that his father had hired for him. Iron Egg shook his head without thinking and said, "No need to consider it. Lin Hao, didn't you say that you have a question for me? If you want to ask, just ask. Cut the crap." Since his nature had been exposed, Iron Egg did not intend to call Lin Hao Young Master Lin anymore. Instead, he unceremoniously called him by his name. Lin Hao laughed embarrassedly. Then, he moved closer and asked carefully, "Iron Egg, do you know Leather Knight?" "Leather Knight? Who is that?" Iron Egg heard this, and subconsciously felt that the name was very familiar. However, he suddenly could not remember who that person was, so he asked, "The person who wrote A Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality? Haven't you heard of Iron Egg?" Lin Hao said anxiously and excitedly. "I've heard of him, but I don't know him." Iron Egg was frantically covering for Li Zishuan. Of course, the truth was not like this. In fact, he had helped Li Zishuan write a novel by hand. However, Li Zishuan's identity as a novel writer could not be known by outsiders. Otherwise, he would be accused of not doing his job properly. TSK, Iron Egg, if you had nothing to do with Leather Knight, would Leather Knight let you be the main character in the novel? Who are you trying to fool? You two must know each other. Chapter 1000. Night. Lin Residence West Courtyard Study. Old Master, I found it. There's indeed a Han Li in Yanhuang College. The butler excitedly pushed open the door and said to Lin Wenyuan, "Oh, tell me quickly, what is his family background and character like?" Lin Wenyuan turned around and hurriedly asked. Iron Egg's knowledge and ability naturally went without saying. However, Lin Wenyuan was still a little worried about Iron Egg's character, so he asked the butler to find someone to investigate. Although the old man often scolded his son, he had always shielded Lin Hao from the wind and rain behind his back. Perhaps this was fatherly love. Old Master, it's hard to say about the others. But this Han Li, you can rest assured, there is absolutely no problem with him. The butler chuckled. Lin Wenyuan frowned. Nothing is absolute. Butler, why do you have so much confidence in this Han Li? The subtext is that you are not related to that brat. So why are you speaking up for him? Could it be that you have received some benefits? The butler did not dare to keep him in suspense, and hurriedly said the truth. Old master, this Han Li has another name, Iron Egg. Moreover, other than being a student of Yanwang College, he has two other identities. One is the disciple of the Marquis of Yong, and the other is the Marquis of Yong's brother-in-law. Brother-in-law, referring to the wife's younger brother. What? Lin Wenyuan's expression suddenly changed, and then became ecstatic. He said in disbelief, there is actually such a coincidence. Because of the Yin Huang Chamber of Commerce, Lin Wenyuan had specially gathered a lot of information about Li Zixuan. He knew that Li Zixuan had a disciple called Iron Egg, but he did not know that Iron Egg's real name was Han Li. Actually, he cannot be blamed, because usually people called Iron Egg, and very few people knew Iron Egg's real name. It was normal that he did not know that Han Li was Iron Egg. Kiki, when this old servant heard this news, I was also shocked. Han Li's mathematics results, whether it was in the Imperial College or Yanwang College, have always been among the best. With his help, what is there to worry about young master's mathematics results? Young master is really lucky this time. The butler's eyebrows were knitted together as he spoke to Lin Wenyuan. Lin Wenyuan's face was flushed red, and it was obvious that he was very happy. After a pause, he said in a low voice, pass down the order. In the future, when Han Xiao comes to our residence, no one is to be negligent. Give him whatever he wants. His orders are my orders. If there is anyone who is disrespectful to Han Xiao, you don't have to explain to me. Just chase them out of the Lin family. Do you understand? The butler's heart trembled, and he cupped his hands respectfully. This old servant understands. Lin Wenyuan nodded. He put his hands behind his back and paced in front of the desk. He said, pass down the order to the accounts office. Give Han Xiao a monthly salary of 50 strings of coins. The butler was shocked. He hesitated for a moment and said, Old master, this old servant doesn't think Han Xiao is a greedy person. We previously agreed on a monthly salary of 20 strings of coins. If we suddenly increase it to 50 strings of coins, I don't think he will accept it. Lin Wenyuan frowned. He also felt that the old butler's words made sense. After thinking for a moment, he said, let the accounts office think of a way. If Han Xiao accepts it, this old man will reward him handsomely. If he doesn't, then forget it. But there is one thing. No matter what, you must not provoke him into disgust. The butler was speechless. Who would rack their brains to give money to someone like this? The world was really big, and there were all kinds of strange things. Yes, old master. The next day, Monday, the cold wind blew. Although there was no rain or snow, the wind in this season was like a knife on one's face. F***CK. The weather is getting colder and colder. I really want to stay in bed forever. Outside the entrance of Yanwang College, Li Tai walked in while rubbing his hands and cursing. At this time, he could not help but touch his stomach. That's right, he was starting to miss the fat on his body. After all, fat could keep out the cold. The oldham was not so afraid of the cold. Hee, Chinke, you can come to school with a blanket. Chung Chumo said mischievously. F***CK off. Li Tai kicked Chung Chumo, but the latter easily dodged. Then, he said unhappily, Chonyo, have you written your self-reflection? Speaking of which, if it were not for Chung Chumo's instigation on Friday, they might not have gone to a small shop to drink. Naturally, they would not have been punished by Li Zixuan to write a self-reflection. Of course I wrote it. Then hurry up and let me take a look at yours. Why? If you want to take a look, go look at yours. Chung Chumo said with an unnatural expression. F***CK. Why? You tell me why? If it were not for your instigation on Friday, would I have gone drinking with you? Now I'm being punished to write a self-reflection. It's all your fault. When little Fatty heard this, he immediately exploded. Chung Chumo pulled Sun Ziffin over and said, Ha! I wasn't the only one who said I wanted a drink. Didn't Sun Ziffin say it too? How is it only my fault? Sun Ziffin, who was implicated even when he was not doing anything, almost vomited blood. He said gloomily, F***CK? Chonyo, you're so mean. The two of you were having a good conversation. Why did you suddenly drag me into it? All right. I'm too lazy to argue with the two of you. Let's go quickly. We'll be late. Li Tai waved his hand in annoyance and then led the way into the academy. F***CK. Quick, look. What's that? After entering the academy, Sun Ziffin suddenly exclaimed and pointed in front of him. F***CK. Could it be? Ching Chumo's face darkened as if he thought of something terrifying. The monthly test results. The monthly test results should be out. I didn't expect the teachers of the academy to be so efficient. In just 2 days, not only did they finish marking the papers, they even tabulated the results. Let's go take a look. Li Tai looked at the huge red list in front of him, and there were many students around it. He could already guess what was written on the list. However, he had thought that it would take at least 3 or 4 days for the test results to come out on Friday. He did not expect that the results would come out after only 2 days. The efficiency of the teachers in the academy was really beyond his expectation. If you want to go, you go. You're going to see if you got first place. What can I do if I go? Chung Chumo waved his hand listlessly and complained. Hey, Chonyo, you can go and see if you got last place? Ha. Li Tai smiled and said sarcastically to Chung Chumo. F***CK. Chinke, are you asking for a beating? Chung Chumo was furious and threw a punch at Li Tai's chest. Chapter 1001. In the afternoon, all the students received a notice and gathered at the field. That was because Li Zishuan was holding a commendation ceremony for the monthly exam. The monthly exam is over. Are you satisfied with your results? There was no flowery opening speech, nor was there a prepared speech. Li Zishuan went straight to the point as if he was chatting about daily life. He didn't like the formalism of his previous life. Not satisfied. Not bad. Li Zishuan's impression in the hearts of students was still relatively amiable, so as soon as his voice fell, the students below immediately gave different answers. If it had been someone else asking, perhaps there would have been very few students who would have answered. Among the answers, most of them were dissatisfied. Only a few students said that they were satisfied. Li Zishuan pressed his hand down, and the students immediately quieted down. He smiled and said, It doesn't matter if you're satisfied or not. It doesn't change the fact that the first monthly exam is over. As a Yamacho of Yenwang College, I want to tell you today that there's no turning back in life. Yesterday was just a passing scenery. Let bygones be bygones. What you need to do is to work hard to make today a sunny day and tomorrow's hope a reality. No one is born worse than others. If you can't beat others now, it only means that you're not working hard enough. As long as you're willing to work hard, the first place in this monthly exam may be trampled under your feet next time. Do you still have confidence? Yes. Although Li Zishuan's words were not comforting, if one listened carefully, it seemed to contain some kind of magical power. It filled one's body with strength, and some even had goosebumps. Perhaps this was the power of chicken soup for the soul. Therefore, after he finished speaking, more than 600 students immediately roared in unison. Li Zishuan pursed his lips and pretended to be disdainful. He said, Sorry, I don't feel your confidence at all with such soft voices. Tell me loudly, do you still have confidence? Yes. 600 people roared in unison. Their voices were more than twice as loud as before. Instantly, the sound waves shook the heavens. Below the rostrum, Li Gang, Yin, Silu, and the others couldn't help but nod secretly when they saw this scene. In the morning class, they found that many students were listless and listless. They understood that many students were not in the mood because they didn't do well in the monthly test. In private, they had also discussed possible solutions, but they did not expect Li Zishuan to stir up the fighting spirit of the students with just a few words. With this kind of ability and this kind of grand prestige in the hearts of the students, they couldn't even be envious. Good. Next up was the monthly tests award ceremony. Students, please give a round of applause. Let's welcome Mr. Li Gang to present the prizes to the top 10 students. Seeing this, Li Zixuan nodded in satisfaction. Smack, smack, smack. Li Gang slowly walked up to the rostrum. The students below the stage cooperated very well and gave a warm round of applause. Looking at the young but vigorous faces below, Li Gang felt as if he had become several decades younger. At this moment, he took a piece of paper from Li Zixuan and began to read. The first place of this monthly test is Jia Jiayin of Year 1 Class 2. He is rewarded with a football and 50 strings of copper coins. Second place is Li Tai of Year 1 Class 1. He is rewarded with a football and 30 strings of copper coins. Third place is Meng Wenhao of Year 1 Class 1. He is rewarded with a football and 10 strings of copper coins. Fourth place is Li Yin of Year 1 Class 2. He is rewarded with 70 strings of copper coins. Ninth place is Zhong Jinsheng of Year 1 Class 12. He is rewarded with 20 strings of copper coins. 10th place is Di Jixuan of Year 1 Class 2. He is rewarded with 10 strings of copper coins. Let's invite the students I just read to come up to the stage to receive their prizes. Li Gang was already 80 years old this year. He was not as young and strong as Li Zixuan. Moreover, he did not practice martial arts, so his voice could not reach every corner below the stage. However, the impact was not great. This was because every sentence he said, Mo Zhong would help him pass on a sentence. With this human-shaped microphone, there was no one who could not hear what Li Gang said. As soon as he finished speaking, 10 students quickly walked out from the group of students. The rest of the people immediately cast envious and jealous gazes at them. This was because the Academy's rewards were really too generous, especially those children from poor families. At this moment, they finally understood that exams could really make one's family rich. Moreover, the results were too fast. It only took a month. After the 10 lucky students went up to the stage, Li Gang one by one gave out the prizes that were prepared on the rostrum to each student. Then, Li Gang said a few words of encouragement to all the students. Then, he handed the stage back to Li Zixuan and went down alone. TSK, TSK. The highest reward is 150 strings of copper coins. The lowest reward is 10 strings of copper coins. Are you jealous? The top 3 students were also rewarded with a football in addition to copper coins. The current market price of a football is 100 strings of copper coins. Therefore, the person who received the highest reward would receive 150 strings of copper coins. Li Zixuan said in a strange tone. The students who did not receive any prizes all vomited blood. How could he be so heart-wrenching? Previously, I told you that there is no turning back in life. Now, I have another sentence to say to you. Knowledge can change your destiny. Knowledge can really change your destiny. Especially for those students whose family background is not very good, you have to work harder to learn. Only when you have completed your studies will you be able to let your parents and siblings live a good life. Li Zixuan said with an extremely serious expression. Hearing that, many students in the audience lowered their heads and fell into deep thought. Clap, clap. After a while, Li Zixuan clapped his hands and said, "All right, this month's award ceremony is all over. I have said what I needed to say. You are on your own now. Next up is the Yinhuang College Professor Award Ceremony. Mo Lingwei, come up." The students were stunned, and many of the teachers were shocked as well. The students at the back immediately stood on their tiptoes or tilted their necks and looked forward. They wanted to see who would go up. Wow, so beautiful. They saw a stunningly beautiful woman in a pink dress. Her dignified appearance revealed an indescribable seductive feeling. Her hair was tied up in an extremely delicate bun. The pink dress made the woman's skin reveal a faint pink color. She was extremely beautiful. Her phoenix eyes were glittering and could capture souls and shake people's minds. Her lips were like cherry blossoms, but they could cause endless, fanciful thoughts. Most of the students were in puberty. When they saw such a stunning beauty, many of them exclaimed. Li Zixuan, who was standing on the rostrum, had a dark expression on his face. This was because Mo Lingwei had obviously dressed up in advance. He said in his heart, "Big sister, This is the Academy Professor Award ceremony. It is very solemn and serious. Okay, you dressed up like this. Are you here for a blind date? Ah. Chapter 1002. Oh, who is this woman? Why did Yamacho ask her to go up? Didn't Yamacho say that they were going to hold a professor appointment ceremony? Could this woman be a professor at our academy in the future? How is that possible? A professor position is so honorable. Only Mr. Li Gang and the head of the mountain are professors in our academy. What does this woman do to deserve the position of professor? Gulp. But this lady is too beautiful. Since when did our academy have a female teacher? I just don't know which class this woman teaches. I have to go and listen. Mo Lingwei, who was dressed up, caused a huge commotion among the students. The average age of this batch of students was about 13 years old. 13 years old was the age when hormones were secreted. Usually, the academy was full of men. It was hard not to be excited when they suddenly saw a beauty. Of course, the students thought of the professor appointment ceremony that Li Zixuan had just mentioned and exclaimed in disbelief. How could a woman be a professor at the academy? When did a professor at Yanhuang College become so worthless? F*CK. Isn't this Mo Lingwei? Is she going to become a professor at the academy? In class 1, Li Tai widened his eyes and said in shock. Others had not seen Mo Lingwei before, but how could he not? Not only had he seen her before, but he also knew that Mo Lingwei was from the Mo family. Ha! Chinke, listen to the voices around you. I really want to see the expression on Xiaoning's face now. Chung Chumo said with a naughty smile. Ha! What other expression can he have? His nose is probably crooked from anger. Yin Xiaoning's expression was unknown, but Mo Huai's old face was as black as the bottom of a pot. When Wang Ji saw this, he joked, Hey, old Mo, your Ling Wei's title is now higher than yours. As her father, you have to work hard. Ha! TSK, TSK. It said that daughters follow their fathers. I didn't expect old Mo to have such a beautiful daughter. The curly-bearded guest said in a strange tone. He and Mo Zhong were the top fighters in the academy, so it was not a big deal for them to get to know each other better. My daughter is insensible. Please don't make fun of her. When this old man returns, I will definitely discipline him strictly. Mo Zhong wasn't in a good mood, so he didn't say much. After a few perfunctory words, he turned around and left with a dark face. Although Li Zixuan had already discussed the matter of Mo Lingwei joining Yanhuang College, he was very dissatisfied with his daughter's attire on such a solemn occasion. Pa. Seeing Mo Lingwei step onto the rostrum, the students below the stage spontaneously applauded. The applause seemed to be much louder than before. What a bunch of little brats who forget their friends for the sake of lust. Li Zixuan grumbled in his heart. Ahem, Ink Girl, it's such a cold day, and you're still wearing such thin clothes. Aren't you cold? After complaining about the students below the stage, Li Zixuan looked at Mo Lingwei, who was wearing a pink dress in front of him. His expression didn't change as he spoke to Mo Lingwei in an extremely low voice. He only knew that there were many girls in the modern world who didn't care about the temperature in winter. He didn't expect that there would be such girls in ancient times. Yamacho, this is a woman's matter. You don't understand. Besides, you can't call me Ink Girl anymore. You should call me Professor Mo. Mo Lingwei raised her chin and said with a little bit of pride. Li Zixuan was instantly speechless. He hadn't even started to give her the title of professor, and this girl was already putting on airs. When she became an official professor, wouldn't this girl's tail be raised to the sky? Ahem. After coughing twice, Li Zixuan ignored Mo Lingwei. He turned around and said to the students below the stage, Many of you might be wondering if I made a mistake. Why did I invite a woman up here? Some of you might be wondering how a woman can be a professor of the academy. I can tell you clearly that I didn't make a mistake. Ink Girl is definitely worthy of being a professor of the academy. Many of you might not know her, but you all know the astronomical telescope in the atrium of Guanghua Building, right? Buzz. After hearing Li Zixuan's words, the students below the stage began to whisper among themselves. Most of them had used an astronomical telescope before. Astronomical telescope? This girl can't be related to the astronomical telescope, right? Oh my God, it can't be, right? I thought that the astronomical telescope was made by Yamacho. If the astronomical telescope is really related to this girl, then it makes sense for her to be a professor. Then this girl is too amazing. Ahem, quiet down. After allowing the students to talk for a while, Li Zishuan pressed his hands down and signaled for them to be quiet. Then he continued, "You guessed right. The astronomical telescope in Guanghua Building was built by Ink Girl. Yinhuang College is a place to educate, broaden the knowledge of the people, and promote engineering. Here, as long as you are talented and capable, you will be put to good use. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to flatter or be tactful. Here, we only talk about talent, and Yinhuang College is only about talent." Ink Girl used her talent and knowledge to do hundreds of experiments in the workshop over the past few months. Finally, she created this peerless divine tool for the Tang Empire. The astronomical telescope has broken through the limits of ordinary people's vision, and even mortals can observe the stars in the sky. Tell me, is she worthy of being a professor? She is. She is. She is. This time, it wasn't just the students who were in their puberty. Even the teachers of the academy were shouting together. Because of Li Zishuan's speech, the future of the Yinhuang Academy's talent promotion policy had been completely set. Only talent, no flattery, no worldly wisdom, and no flattery. Yinhuang College was truly a pure academic holy land. Hearing the hundreds of people cheering for her, Emo Lingwei couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion. Thinking back to the hard work she had done in the past few months, she really wanted to say that she didn't regret it. She had fallen in love with this college, because this college was different, unparalleled in the world. Good. Then, I, Li Zishuan, in the name of Yinhuang College's Yamacho, officially invite Emo Lingwei to be a special professor of Yinhuang College. In the future, she will be in charge of Yinhuang College's experiments, but not in charge of teaching. I hope that she will continue to work hard and bring glory to Yinhuang College." Li Zishuan straightened his clothes and took a dark golden fish talisman from Emo Zhong's hand. His expression was incomparably solemn, and every word was sonorous and powerful, like an eternal oath. His voice was clearly transmitted to the ears of everyone present. After he finished speaking, he handed the fish talisman to Emo Lingwei with both hands. Infected by this solemn atmosphere, Emo Lingwei's expression also became solemn. She took the fish talisman with both hands, then turned around and held it in front of her. Looking at the students, she said, "Emo Lingwei accepts the order. Born as a person of Yinhuang, dead as a soul of Yinhuang. Heaven above, the thick earth is the witness." Chapter 1003. Emo Lingwei's delicate hair bun had been blown away by the cold wind. Her hair danced in the wind, but her body was like a pine tree. She stood upright on the rostrum, motionless. Perhaps she had only come to Yinhuang College for fun in the beginning, but now she felt as if she had been given a mission. Here was a group of people with dreams. They were cute and real. She liked it here. She now somewhat understood why Li Zishuan's family was so rich, why he didn't do his job even though he was in a high position, and why he liked to come to the academy to cause trouble. Because some things were more precious than money and fame. Born as a citizen of Yinhuang, dead as a spirit of Yinhuang. Born as a citizen of Yinhuang, dead as a spirit of Yinhuang. When they heard Li Zishuan say that Emo Lingwei would only be in charge of the Yinhuang College's experiments and would not participate in the teaching, the students were disappointed. But perhaps emotions were contagious, or perhaps Emo Lingwei's words resonated with the students. At this moment, the students all unanimously cheered for Emo Lingwei's powerful and sonorous vow. After a full quarter of an hour, the cheering stopped. Emo Lingwei bowed and then walked down the rostrum. Everyone thought that today's assembly would be over and that they would return to their classes and find their respective teachers. But who knew that Li Zishuan was going to stir up trouble again? Chung Chimo come up. Li Zixuan looked at the students of Class 1 and said expressionlessly. Everyone was stunned and did not understand. This. Why did Yamacho suddenly call for Chung Chimo? Could it be that they want to appoint Chung Chimo as a professor of the Yanhuang College? Some students guessed with uncertainty when they thought of Mo Lingwei. But as soon as this was said, it was immediately refuted. T. How is that possible? I saw it this morning. Chung Chimo's monthly test results are in the 400s. He's even lower than me. If he could be a professor, then the rest of us can too. Yeah, I'm in the 200s this time. There were different opinions. The students of Class 1 all looked at Chung Chimo. Chung Chimo, who always liked to be in the limelight, was now like an ostrich, lowering his head and counting ants on the grass. It was as if he did not hear Li Zixuan calling for him. F***CK. Ugly ox. Yamacho is calling for you. Why aren't you going? Maybe you'll be a professor too. Sun Zifan was standing to the left of Chung Chimo. Seeing this, he could not help but touch Chung Chimo's arm and whispered, T. Whoever wants to go, go. I'm not going. It's not something good. Chung Chimo shook off Sun Zifan's hand and said angrily, Ugly ox, how can you? Did you do something wrong and we don't know about it? Li Tai asked curiously. Chung Chimo, come up. Do you want me to go down and invite you up? Just as Chung Chimo was about to argue, Li Zixuan's voice came from above. Chung Chimo had no choice but to walk up to the rostrum. He walked unwillingly and dragged his feet. It was as if something terrible was waiting for him. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, Chung Chimo slowly ascended the rostrum. Li Zixuan did not wait for him to ask, but handed him a piece of paper with some words written on it. Read it. As long as you can finish reading it, I'll let bygones be bygones. Chung Chimo was dumbfounded. The students looked at each other. They did not know why Li Zixuan had spent so much effort to invite Chung Chimo up. Li Tai, Sun Zifan, and Yuchi Bao Lin looked at each other. Li Tai said uncertainly, What's that? Bao Lin, you can see very far. Help me take a look. Okay. Yuchi Bao Lin responded and looked at the paper. After a while, he replied, Chinke, that seems to be the self-reflection letter that we handed to Yamacho this morning. It should be Brother Chonyo's. I remember that he only wrote half of it. Self-reflection letter? Li Tai was stunned. Then, he said happily, Chimo was unwilling to show it to me this morning. Now, it seems that Yamacho wants him to read it to us. Haha. Yamacho, don't. I'll just write another one. On the stage, Chung Chimo lowered his voice and said to Li Zixuan. However, Li Zixuan did not buy it. He said seriously, Now you know that you're just doing it half-heartedly? What were you doing earlier? Read it quickly. Don't waste everyone's time. After hearing Li Zixuan's words, Chung Chimo knew that there was no room for discussion. He said gloomily, Fine, then you have to keep your word. As long as I read it, I'll let bygones be bygones. I won't have to do any self-reflection in the future. Okay, of course. Li Zixuan nodded. Chung Chimo took 2 deep breaths. Then he took the self-reflection letter that he had written earlier and looked at the students in the audience. He began to read, Due to the sudden change in the weather recently, the wind and clouds are constantly changing. It's really unpredictable. Originally, my mood and body were fine, but due to the cold wind, I boom. Such a weird and uncultured opening immediately attracted the attention of all the students. The students in the audience could not help but whisper among themselves. Li Tai burst out laughing. Puffed. F***CK. No wonder Chonyo was unwilling to show me his self-reflection letter. It's so vulgar. Chung Chimo's face turned red. Yes, even someone as thick-skinned as him would feel embarrassed. However, he had already read it. There was no reason to back down. If he backed down, he would have to write another self-reflection letter. How troublesome would that be? He might as well read it all at once. Anyway, he had already embarrassed himself. What was there to be afraid of? Due to the cold wind, I wanted a drink. In a moment of confusion, I committed a heinous crime. At the wrong time, at the wrong place, I did a wrong thing, which was to gather people to drink in the academy. At this point, the students finally realized that Chung Chumo had committed a crime. Now, I have deeply realized my mistake. Classmate on the left, I'm sorry. Classmate in the middle, I was wrong. Classmate on the right, can you forgive me? I believe that you can forgive me. Yes, yes, thank you. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect. At the beginning, Chung Chumo felt a little embarrassed to read it in front of so many people. However, as he read it, he became more and more fluent. He finished reading the remaining 100 words in one breath. However, the students in the audience were laughing so hard that their stomachs were about to burst. Ha ha ha. Is Chung Chumo writing a self-reflection letter? This is too funny. How can there be such a self-reflection letter? Drinking is just drinking. How can it be related to the weather? It seems like it's really related. Ha ha. Chapter 1004. In the future, no student is allowed to drink alcohol in the academy. I don't care if it's outside the academy, but it's absolutely forbidden inside the academy. Violators will be publicly criticized throughout the academy. I hope everyone will remember this. In Yanhuang College, after Chung Chumo finished reading the self-reflection letter, he immediately slipped away. Li Zixuan stood with his hands behind his back and spoke to the hundreds of students below the stage. In ancient times, famous scholars generally liked to drink, as if not drinking could not reflect their heroic spirit and literary talent. For example, Li Bai and Du Fu. However, everything depended on the specific situation. Firstly, the Yanhuang College students were still relatively young. In his previous life, most of them had just entered junior high school. Secondly, with the popularity of the drunken immortal and the land of warmth, the alcohol culture of the Tang Dynasty had undergone a great change. More and more people liked to drink strong alcohol, like the drunken immortal. Li Bai was known as the immortal of wine that would not get drunk after 1,000 cups. But that was because he had never encountered the drunken immortal. The students were still in their puberty period. Drinking too much of this type of alcohol would only harm their bodies and not do them any good. Furthermore, the academy was a sacred place for learning. In modern times, no school encouraged students to drink alcohol on campus. The students' hearts tightened. Even Chung Chumo, who was close to Li Zixuan, was punished for drinking. It seemed that Li Zixuan was serious. They all secretly thought that they could not drink in the academy in the future. All right, dismissed. Students from each class, please leave in an orderly manner. After saying all that needed to be said, Li Zixuan announced the end of the meeting. The 600 students from the 16 classes left the field in an orderly manner. Yamacho, have you seen my father? After leaving the rostrum, Mo Lingwei walked over and asked. Li Zixuan had a strange expression and replied, I just saw Mr. Mo leave early. I think he should be in the teaching building now. However, I suggest that Ink Girl look for Mr. Mo later if there's nothing urgent. Mo Lingwei was not stupid. She rolled her eyes and wrinkled her nose. Oh, Yamacho has a point. Then I'll go back and change first. I'm freezing to death. After saying that, the girl waved at Li Zixuan. Then, she hugged her shoulders, curled up into a ball from the cold, and quickly walked out of the field. Li Zixuan was speechless. Women were indeed creatures that were hard to understand. Volume 11. The Descent of a True Immortal, Chapter 2446. Ascending to the Immortal Realm. Taoist Xia nodded in response. This is merely an unfulfilled wish of my former master, and he'll only be able to fulfill it after you ascend, Taoist Xia replied. At this moment, the five-colored cloud in the sky grew larger and larger, and an indescribably heavy aura emanated from it. In the south of Chang, and in the reclining lane, Lin Mansion. On this day, Lin Hao was lying in the courtyard, basking in the sun while enjoying the massage from the maidservants. At the same time, he was also listening to the maidservants reading him the latest issue of a record of a mortal's journey to immortality. After an unknown period of time, Hanli slowly opened his eyes in a cool breeze, and the face of a handsome young man appeared in front of him. The man smiled at him, revealing a set of white teeth. My name is Gao Sheng, and I welcome you to the Northern Frost Immortal Realm. Lin Hao's eyes narrowed as he was enjoying the grotesque and variegated world of cultivation. Suddenly, he heard the servant girl say the words complete, and he couldn't help but be startled. After a long while, he muttered with a complicated expression, "It's finished." He was introverted by nature and did not like to interact with others. Before this year, his biggest dream was to stay at home. However, there was only one form of entertainment at home, and it was inevitable that he would feel bored if he stayed at home for too long. However, the most he would do was go fishing and boating. He would never go to places with a lot of people. In March and April of this year, Lisa Schwan launched the Tang Daily. The newspaper recorded new things every day to pass the time. However, it was only to pass the time. It was far from being interesting. What was really interesting was the Dahua Jianghu section at the back of the Tang Daily. At first, this section only had a record of a mortal's journey to immortality. However, this novel alone was enough to support the entire section. The huge world structure and the magnificent scenes attracted Lin Hao almost from the beginning. Perhaps it was because he had never read this type of novel before, but he could not deny the greatness of a mortal. Other than cultivation, fighting monsters, and leveling up, Immortal was also a novel that went straight to the heart. Immortal, immortal, immortal. From the beginning to the end, he never forgot his own pursuit. For people who pursued immortality, feelings were nothing. Everything was natural, and there was no need to force things. There was no ambition to instigate any fights, and there was no need to complain. Silently working hard was the true essence of being immortal. This was very immersive. That's right, Lin Hao only read it for 3 days, and he already thought of himself as the main character of the novel. The most important thing was the terrifying speed at which Immortal was updated. 10, 20 chapters were released a day, and Lin Hao was very satisfied with it. Therefore, from the moment Immortal was released, he started to completely stay at home. At that time, although Immortal was the only novel in the entire Dahua Jianghu section, the number of updates Immortal had completely made up for the lack of novels in this section. Later on, with the popularity of Immortal, it attracted a large number of romantic fans, and the number of novels in the Dahua Jianghu section increased. In the end, this section became an independent book and completely broke away from the Tang Daily's news section. Lin Hao was even more enthusiastic about staying at home. Going out was impossible for him. There was food, drinks, and novels at home. So why should he go out? In the blink of an eye, nearly a year had passed, and Immortal had actually ended. In Lin Hao's heart, there was suddenly a lot of reluctance. This was a novel that had brought him nearly a year of happiness. Young master, it seems like it's really over. Servant Xiaoqin saw that Lin Hao's expression was a little strange and said in a mosquito-like voice, "That's it? Then what should I do in the future?" Lin Hao's expression was lonely. He put his hands behind his head and asked the heavens speechlessly. A novel that took more than 8 months, with a total of more than 2,400 chapters and a total of more than 7 million words, suddenly ended just like that. It was inevitable that he would feel lost. Young master, there are other novels. For example, Zhang Xiaohua's Journey to Immortality. Young master, do you want to listen to it? The servant suggested with a little heartache. I'm not listening to it. It's too slow. I'll save it for a month before reading it. Lin Hao said disinterestedly. As the saying goes, there is no harm if there is no comparison. Although there were more than 50 novels in Tang Daily, Dahua Jianghu, that were being updated at the same time, compared to Immortal's speed of more than 10 chapters per day, the rest were really just trash. This made Lin Hao feel very dull. Chapter 1005. Young master, when I went to Shi City to help Madam buy something, I overheard some people talking about something very interesting. Xiao Shi, who was massaging Lin Hao's shoulders, suddenly said with a smile when she saw that her young master was in low spirits, "Oh, tell me about it. How is it interesting?" Lin Hao opened his eyes and asked with great interest. Xiao Shi thought for a moment, and then began to act out vividly. Young master, one of the two young men was called Su Liang, and the other was called Wan Hong. When I was buying things, they were bragging. At that time, Su Liang said, "Alas, Brother Wan, I was about to form my gold core a few days ago, but my father took me to see a quack. That quack used medicine to dissolve my gold core, which hadn't yet formed in my body. Now, I've completely become immortal. What a pity." Wan Hong also sighed and said, "Brother Su, my condolences. You're nothing but a few days ago, the young lady next door had the strength of a nascent soul cultivator, but she was beaten to the bottom in one day. Compared to that, she's the one with the greatest misfortune." Hearing this, Lin Hao couldn't lie down anymore. He stood up and asked curiously, "Xiao Shi, are those two immortal cultivators? There are actually nascent soul cultivators in Chang'an City?" As a senior fan of Mortal, he naturally knew the immortal cultivation realm in the book like the back of his hand. So when he heard Xiao Shi mention the words gold core and nascent soul, he became inexplicably excited. Unexpectedly, the maidservant Xiao Shi giggled and continued, "That's not it, young master. At that time, I had the same thought as you, but at that time another young man came and said, 'Hey, Su Yang, I heard that you had stone rain a while ago. How are you now?' In ancient times, all kinds of calculi were called stone showers, different from modern high-tech methods. When ancient people got calculi, if the calculi were not big, they could expel the calculi from the body through 3 methods: exercise, drinking water, and traditional Chinese medicine. In the courtyard, Lin Hao was stunned for a full 3 to 4 breaths of time before he burst into laughter. "Huh, so this guy got Lin and actually said he was about to form his gold core. What a joke. Ha ha ha." The other 3 servant girls couldn't help but cover their mouths and chuckle. The previously depressing atmosphere in the courtyard immediately lightened up. "Xiao Shi, that guy called Wan Hong, what's going on with the little girl who's about to reach the nascent soul stage?" After laughing for a long time, Lin Hao laughed until his stomach hurt. Only then did he gradually stop laughing. He thought of another person and asked. At this time, he also guessed that the nascent soul stage lady the Wan Hong spoke of was probably just a joke. Xiao Shi said with a smile, "Young master, please listen to Xiao Shi." After Su Liang saw that his secret was exposed, he quickly left with his tail between his legs. Coincidentally, at this time, a couple came out of a nearby medicine shop with a baby in their arms. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Wan Hong, isn't the little girl next to you Master Zhu's wife? I heard that his wife just gave birth to a big fat boy a few days ago. When did his wife become a nascent soul cultivator?" "Huh, interesting. It turned out that the young lady was pregnant." "Huh, this Wan Hong is too funny. He actually said that a pregnant woman is a nascent soul expert. I'm dying of laughter. Ha ha ha. I can't laugh anymore. Ha." After listening to the maidservant Xiao Shi's words, Lin Hao couldn't help but burst into laughter again. The maidservants also laughed until they were trembling. For a moment, the courtyard was bustling with noise and excitement. After a long time, Lin Hao's face regained its calmness. He got up and rubbed the maidservant Xiao Shi's head. He sighed and said, "Okay, I'm in a much better mood now. Thank you, Xiao Shi. It's good that the legend of a mortal's journey to immortality is over. It's time for me to review my homework." The maidservant Xiao Shi said shyly, "Young master is so hardworking. If master and old madam know, they will definitely be very happy." "Huh." Lin Hao shook his head and smiled inexplicably. Then he said, "Go take 1,000 strings of cash to the Tang daily editorial office and reward Leather Knight. Take it as a thank you to him for the legend of a mortal's journey to immortality for half a year." "Ah, 1,000 strings of cash? Young master, if master finds out," Xiao Shi said with her mouth wide open in shock. The rest of the maidservants were also in disbelief. 1,000 strings of cash was enough for a family of 6 to live for several lifetimes. "This is all my pocket money. Even if my father finds out, what can he say? Go quickly." Lin Hao rolled his eyes and said unhappily, "As the only son of the Lin family, He had been doted on since he was young. How could he lack money? Yes, young master. In a new workshop of the strange interest pavilion, in the editorial office of the Tang Daily. When Li Zixuan moved the workshop here in order to facilitate Ma Zhou's teaching activities in Yanwang College, he moved the editorial office of the Tang Daily over as well. In this way, Ma Zhou could take on two jobs at the same time. Today, the editorial office of the new workshop welcomed many people. These people were the staff of the various Datong daily offices in Chang and City. The eldest son of the Chao family in Chang, and Chao Shi, rewards the legend of a mortal's journey to immortality, Leather Knight, 3,000 strings of cash. The eldest son of the Murong family in Chang, and Murong Jun, rewards the legend of a mortal's journey to immortality, Leather Knight, 1,000 strings of cash. The eldest son of the Wang family in Taiyuan, Wang Renbiao, rewards the legend of a mortal's journey to immortality, Leather Knight, 10,000 strings of cash. Ever since the first carriage full of copper coins drove into the workshop, the page boys' singing never stopped. Previously, in order to make it easier for readers to reward their favorite novels, the editorial office of the Tang Daily had specially set up offices in Chang, and even more than 300 states and counties across the country to accept rewards and give fan badges to the recipients. Normally, every 10 days, the various offices would send the rewards they received to the editorial office of the Tang Daily in the workshop. However, today was different. With the completion of the Mortal, the hundreds of thousands of readers who had accumulated in the past 8 months suddenly went crazy. They lined up to the Datong Daily office to reward the Mortal. The rewards range from a few hundred copper coins to tens of thousands of strings of cash. The warehouses of the major offices in Chang and City where the copper coins were stored were immediately filled to the brim. For safety reasons, the various offices hurriedly sent people to the new workshop in Plum Village to deliver the copper coins. On the cement road from Plum Village to Chang and City, one after another, money trucks appeared in an endless stream. Fortunately, the road from Chang and City to Plum Village had already been repaired. Fortunately, this place could be considered the foot of the emperor, so the security was not bad. Otherwise, such a huge amount of money would be tempting. What's the 100th? When Ma Zhou received the news, he immediately rushed over from Yanwang College. Hearing the rewards coming in one after another, his head started to ache. This scene was simply too crazy. Godfather Ma, this is the 950th person who has rewarded more than 100 strings of cash. Song Xiaoxi replied. 951? Oh my God, are there going to be 1,000 league leaders today? Ma Zhou was not someone who had not seen the world. However, when he heard such a result, he could not help but be flabbergasted. 1,000 league leaders appearing in a day? Wasn't this too crazy? The income that the mortal brought to the editorial office of the Tang Daily was actually several times more than the total income of the other 50-plus novels combined. How can anyone live with this? Chapter 1006. The ending of The Mortal triggered a huge tipping chain effect. The Tang Daily's offices in Chang and City were overcrowded with people. Thousands of copper coins were being pulled in continuously. The shopkeepers of the other shops were envious, because the income of this office in a day was equivalent to 10 or even 100 years of their income. TSK. It really made one's eyes red with envy. But the one who benefited the most should be the Leather Knight who wrote The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality, right? He will get a share of the tipping Datong Daily receives. I didn't expect this. Writing novels can actually make so much money. The shopkeeper of a calligraphy and painting shop next to the Datong Daily's office stood at the entrance of the shop. He couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the rich people next door. This old man must have not seen the miserable situation of the other failed authors. That's why he was so emotional, right? Xiaolu, why did you come out from there? The shopkeeper's eyes suddenly widened. He saw his shop assistant coming out of the office. He quickly went forward to grab the assistant and asked, Shopkeeper, I saw that it was quite lively here, so I went to take a look, the assistant said hurriedly. Just to take a look? The shopkeeper was old and experienced. How could he not see that the assistant was lying? I really just want to take a look? Nonsense. Tell me, how much did you tip them? The shopkeeper was so angry that he kicked him. The manservant subconsciously dodged, but he didn't expect that a light blue badge would fall out from his sleeve. The shopkeeper bent down and nimbly picked it up. After looking at it carefully, he suddenly said in a bad mood, "You're too young. You're too young. You stinking brat. Just a while ago, you were complaining to me that you were poor and that your mother was sick. Now, you actually went to tip The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality. How much did you tip? Apprentice? If I remember correctly, you need to tip 500 copper coins in order to get the apprentice badge, right? You're really something." After saying this, the shopkeeper kicked the manservant 2 more times in exasperation. "Shopkeeper, I didn't lie to you. My mother was indeed sick before, but she has already recovered. These 500 copper coins were saved by this little one over the past half a year of frugality. I feel that a record of a mortal's journey to immortality is well written. Now that it's finished, I have to do something." The manservant rubbed his buttocks and argued. The shopkeeper frowned. A moment later, he slapped the back of the manservant's head and said, "Bastard, why didn't you tell this old man that you wanted to give a reward? Go and tell the accountant to withdraw 10 strings of coins. Help this old man reward The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality." The manservant was stunned, and then he replied with a smile, Hey, I'll go right away." A moment later, the manservant came out with a large bag of copper coins. Suddenly, he hesitated for a moment and said, "Shopkeeper, are you only giving 10 strings of coins? I feel that with your status, you should at least reward him with an alliance master." He had yet to see what the guild leader badge looked like. It was a good opportunity to broaden his horizons. Scram! The shopkeeper's face darkened as he roared. This was only a miniature version of Mortal's fans, but also showed how popular Mortal was among the masses. From the commoners at the bottom to the officials and dignitaries at the top, there would always be people who would laugh and be moved by Mortal. Now that Mortal had finished, it was like a fuse that completely ignited the love of Mortal in their hearts. Naturally, the rewards would come flooding in. In the afternoon, Lisa Schwan found out about the crazy rewards caused by the ending of Mortal. In fact, he hadn't paid attention to this novel for a long time. This was because he had already finished writing the rest of the novel more than a month ago. At the Tang Daily, the daily updates were the drafts that he had submitted in advance. Marquis, the reward income from this day's rewards is probably tens of thousands of strings of coins. Aren't we making too much money? Ma Zhou exclaimed to Lisa Schwan as he held a report in his hand. At the beginning, the business under Lisa Schwan's name was the Tang Daily. Later on, when the Tang Daily started to accept advertisement from commoners' shops, they recovered some of their losses. Every month, they could earn at least a few thousand strings of coins. But now, the income from the Bragging World section had completely exploded, and the profits were so shocking that Ma Zhou couldn't help but admire Lisa Schwan's foresight. If you want to make a lot of money, you have to have good novels. A popular novel like The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality is too rare. Lisa Schwan shook his head and said, "It was undeniable that The Mortal had some shortcomings, but it was also a great novel." Now, there were dozens of novels imitating The Mortal's Journey to Immortality in the Tang Daily, Bragging World. This was the best proof. Ma Zhou chuckled, his eyes shining with wisdom. He said, "For others, it might be extremely difficult to create a novel that is as good as The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality. But for Marquis, it shouldn't be difficult. Others might not know who the author of The Mortal was, but how could Ma Zhou, the editor-in-chief of the Tang Daily, not know who it was?" He had previously asked Lisa Schwan for a draft. It was precisely because of his confidence in Lisa Schwan that he said such a thing. After all, Lisa Schwan had created too many miracles. What was there to be surprised about if there were 1 or 2 more? Lisa Schwan heard that and smiled without saying anything. Ma Zhou couldn't help but ask, "When does Marquis plan to write the next novel?" Lisa Schwan thought for a while and said, I don't plan to write it in the near future. Maybe next year. Ma Zhou was disappointed. Then I guess many people will be disappointed. Marquis, you don't know this, but many of the people who gave you tips because of the ending of Mortal Man are commoners at the bottom of society. They scrimped and saved up a few hundred copper coins and used it all to tip you. Lisa Schwan was touched. In this Tang, not only were the commoners simple and honest, even the readers were so stubborn and cute. Brother Ma, you don't have to persuade me anymore. I definitely won't have time to write another novel this year. Good food is not afraid of being late. For next year's new novel, I will definitely not disappoint the readers of The Mortal. Lisa Schwan shook his head and sighed. He couldn't bear it and added, In a while, I will write a speech. I'll have to trouble Brother Ma to publish it on Jianghu tomorrow. Ma Zhou knew that it was impossible, so he didn't try to persuade him. Besides, there was only a month left in the year. He didn't have much time left. Hence, he cupped his hands and replied, Yes, Marquis. Chapter 1007. The next day. Damn. Look. Something big happened. Early in the morning, cries and screams could be heard on the streets of Chang'an. What can happen? You're making a fuss over nothing. Something big really happened. Brother Chu, come and take a look. Look here. Let me see. Ouch. Holy **T. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? The first few pages of Tang Daily's Dahua, pugilistic world were filled with lines of red text. According to the rules, anyone who tipped more than 100 strings of cash could enter the next day's tipping list. The tipping list is printed in red ink. A deluge of extravagant flowers, moving me to tears. You deserve this reward for your talent. Lisa Schwan from Chang, Anne's Yongla Lane has tipped Leather Knight 10,000 strings of cash. This book is too well written. Let's reward him and hope that the following chapters will be more exciting. Back then, when Lisa Schwan had just started writing Mortal, he had praised himself and rewarded himself with 1,000 strings of cash. Now that Mortal had ended, this fellow had decided to finish what he started. So what if he was thick-skinned? A deluge of extravagant flowers, moving me to tears. You deserve this reward for your talent. Wang Renbiao from Taiyuan's Wang family has tipped Leather Knight 10,000 strings of cash. This book is too well written. Let's reward him and hope that the following chapters will be more exciting. A deluge of extravagant flowers, moving me to tears. You deserve this reward for your talent. Chao Shi from Chang, Anne's Chao family has tipped Leather Knight 3,000 strings of cash. This book is too well written. Let's reward him and hope that the following chapters will be more exciting. 10,000 strings of cash, 3,000 strings of cash, 2,000 strings of cash, 1,000 strings of cash. What came into view were all these shocking numbers. At this moment, money was no longer called money. It was just a number that shocked people to the point of numbness. What the heck? There were a total of 10 pages. How much money does it add up to? Gulp. I'm afraid there are more than 1,000 people on the list. That means there were more than 1,000 people who tipped a legend of a mortal's journey to immortality yesterday. More than 1,000 league leaders appeared in a day. That's at least 100,000 strings of cash. That's crazy. Are there really so many people tipping? Of course. I even tipped him 100 copper coins yesterday. At that time, there were a lot of people who tipped him. The news of a record of a mortal's journey to immortality, collecting thousands of alliance members, spread like wildfire among the crowd. Chang and city and some of the counties near Chang and city immediately boiled over. In the streets and alleys, in the restaurants and tea houses, there were basically people talking about yesterday's grand occasion. Many people proudly took out their mortal badges, indicating that they were also part of the reward army yesterday. From this, one could see how popular Mortal was. However, compared to the huge amount of rewards, the Mortal section in Tang Dynasty Daily, Bragging World, was even more touching. Final thoughts. I heard that the streets and alleys of Chang and city were emptied yesterday. Countless people tipped swordsmen, ranging from dozens of copper coins to tens of thousands of strings of cash. Swordsmen were moved to tears. The legend of a mortal's journey to immortality was completed in March and finished in November. It took more than 8 months to complete, with a total of more than 7 million words. During this period of time, I would like to thank everyone for their continuous support. Swordsmen will return in March next year. Please look forward to it. Seeing these final thoughts, many people could not help but recall the various things that happened when they first started reading Mortal. Their hearts were very touched at first. However, the last sentence of Swordsmen will return in March next year made many people curse. F***CK. What does that mean? It means that Leather Knight will not write another book until March next year? Isn't that too much of a scam? There's still about 4 months until March next year. How am I going to survive these 4 months? Writing for 8 months and resting for 4 months. This guy is too much of a playboy, right? I don't agree. Who knows where that Pai Shiajua guy lives? I'll bring some people to tie him up and lock him in a small house to write novels for me every day. If he doesn't write 20 chapters a day, he's not allowed to go anywhere. Lisa Xuan probably did not expect that the Tang Dynasty would have such a ferocious reader. Yes. This is a good suggestion. Tie him up. Yes. Tie him up. Tie him up. But no one knows where he lives. A certain person's suggestion received a lot of responses. However, the cruel reality made everyone fall silent. Let's go to the workshop of the Curious Pavilion. Find the people from Tang Daily. They definitely know who Leather Knight is and where he lives. Yes, let's go to the workshop of the Curious Pavilion. I know where he lives. I'll lead the way. In an instant, dozens of irritable readers rushed towards the new workshop of the Curious Pavilion. However, these people were too naive. The author of The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality was the big boss of the Curious Pavilion. How could the staff of the Tang Daily tell them the real information? What's more, the new workshop of the Curious Pavilion was also guarded by a group of Imperial Guards sent by Lier. A few dozen people would not be able to break through the door of the workshop. In the end, Ma Zhou comforted them for a long time and promised that he would keep urging Leather Knight to release his new book as soon as possible. Only then did the irritable readers disperse. Looking at the backs of these people, Ma Zhou wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Of course, what he said just now was a lie. Once Li Zishuan decided on something, it was very difficult to change his mind. He definitely would not ask for a rebuff by urging him to release his novel. At this time, he really wished that he never knew that Li Zishuan was Leather Knight, because many times it was harder to keep a secret than to know a secret. A bunch of ignorant and unruly commoners. They don't want to read the writings of sages and scholars, and they want to fight over reading that vulgar novel. Sure enough, the world is ignorant. Rottenwood cannot be carved. Of course, not everyone was a die-hard fan of The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality. There was no lack of voices criticizing The Legend of a Mortal in Chang and City, such as the Imperial College and the Hongwen School. But first, the number of people who liked The Legend of a Mortal obviously had an absolute advantage. Second, the Tang Daily was run by Li Zishuan, and Li Er also participated in it. Although scholars had character, no one was willing to go through so much trouble for such a small matter. It was not worth it. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. This was the most common method used by those arrogant scholars. But there were many things that you could ignore, but you could not change its greatness. For example, the huge fan base of The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality showed that it was an irreplaceable novel. Next March. That's great. That means that these 4 months are our chance. At noon in Yanhuang College, the 3 people from Jinyu Academy had eaten lunch and were reading the newspaper on a stone bench in the woods of the academy. After seeing the acceptance speech of The Legend of a Mortal, Liao Feichen's eyes lit up, and he said excitedly, Chapter 1008. Yes, without the popular novel A Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality, we can indeed give a try. Who knows? We might be able to reach a higher level. In Yanhuang College, Chen Tianhua nodded after hearing his good friend's words. Both he and Liao Feichen had serialized novels in Tang Dynasty Daily. His novel was Zhang Xiaohua's Journey to Immortality, and it was about 900,000 words long. Liao Feichen's novel was called The Long Road to Immortality, and it was slightly slower, but it was also about 800,000 words long. Even though they had been admitted to Yanhuang College a few months ago, they still insisted on writing novels in their free time. In fact, this kind of half-study, half-work state did not affect their studies because there were many poor students in the college who were in this state. The difference was that the others were working at the posts provided by the college, while the two of them were using their free time to write novels. In the past, A Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality was an insurmountable mountain in front of Chen Tianhua and Liao Feichen. Now that a mortal had ended, the two of them felt that their opportunity had come. This was especially so for Chen Tianhua. Other than mortal, his legend of Zhang Xiaohua's cultivation to immortality was the novel with the best results in talking about pugilistic world. Taking advantage of the time when mortal was finished, if he put in a little more effort, it was very likely that it would reach a higher level. Yes, let's hurry up and try to write more during this time. Liao Feichen nodded fiercely. Hey, Hong, didn't you say that you were about to start writing your novel? Why haven't you started? Are you trying to scare us? Chen Tianhua suddenly thought of something and turned his head to ask. What I said earlier was true. I wasn't lying to you. I've already thought of the plot framework for this novel, and I can start writing at any time. Hua Hongyi said with an embarrassed expression. The other two obviously did not believe him. Chen Tianhua said, Hong Yi, then tell us, when do you plan to publish your novel? When the time comes, Feichen and I will definitely support you. Yes, that's right, I'll definitely support you. We definitely can't afford the title of Alliance Master, but we can still afford the title of Disciple. Liao Feichen echoed. Hua Hongyi rolled his eyes. After thinking for a moment, he said, although the framework of the plot has been conceived, the specific details still need to be considered. Next March. I'll publish the book next March. Poof. What? F*CK. Hongyi, are you still asleep? Why do you want to publish your book in March of next year? Aren't you courting death? Liao Feichen almost vomited blood when he heard that Hua Hongyi was going to publish the book in March next year. He stared at his old friend as if he was looking at a madman. How was that courting death? Feichen, didn't you want to say that Leather Knight will also release a book next March? Hua Hongyi shook his head and said nonchalantly, if he wants to publish books, then so be it. Who said that we can't publish books together with him? What's more, didn't you and Tianhua publish books together with Pai Xiajia back then? Chen Tianhua said gloomily, Hong Yi, how could it be the same? Back then, when novels were just becoming popular, who would have thought that Leather Knight's mortal cultivation would be so popular? Yes, the next time I publish a book, I definitely won't publish with that person. Liao Feichen also shook his head. Hua Hongyi, on the other hand, was somewhat disapproving. Tianhua, Feichen, we're 7 feet tall men. Even if we can't beat him, we can't be afraid before the battle. Besides, I have confidence in my novel. It might not lose to Leather Knight. Chen Tianhua and Liao Feichen shook their heads. They secretly thought that their good friend was really fearless because he didn't know anything. Let's talk about it when he gets bumped. Marquis, Manager Fu and Fu Bin request an audience. In the afternoon, Li Zixuan was handling official business in Yanhuang College's principal's office when Mo Zhong pushed the door open and entered. He bowed and cupped his fists. Fu Bin? He's back. Li Zixuan was startled, then said happily, Quick, let them in. More than a month ago, Fu Bin had set off from Chang, and with the mining team and the iron ore distribution map. After more than a month, this group of people had finally returned, and they had returned at the right time. Because the bicycles produced by the Strange Taste Pavilion were in short supply, the price of the bicycles had been inflated to more than 600 strings of coins. Seeing the money being taken away by the scalpers, Faubert was anxious. Chao Wendong, Lin Wenyuan, and the other members of the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce were also anxious. But was this because the workshop's production efficiency couldn't keep up? Absolutely not. The workshop could already produce 40 to 50 bicycles a day, and the speed was not slow at all. The problem lay in the lack of raw materials, the lack of iron and rubber. The workshop had already bought almost all the iron and sulfur that could be bought. Because of this, the price of iron and sulfur in Chang and city had increased by quite a bit. But this amount of iron and sulfur was still insufficient to meet the huge demand for bicycles. Now that Fubin was back, as long as they could find an iron or sulfur mine, no matter how big or small, they could alleviate the Strange Taste Pavilion's urgent need. Young master. Not long after, Fubin came in under Faubert's lead. He cupped his fists and bowed to Lisa Xuan. Obviously, Fubin had gone to find his uncle as soon as he returned. Faubert, you don't have to be so courteous. Quick, have a seat. Lisa Xuan stood up and pointed to the sofa opposite him as he hurriedly said to Faubert. Faubert saw that Lisa Xuan was not purposely being courteous, so he thanked him and sat down. Only then did Lisa Xuan look at Fubin. Compared to more than a month ago, this guy's face was a little less immature. Presumably, this was his first time going on a long journey, and he had gained a lot of experience. Huh, Xiaobing, did you encounter any danger along the way? Lisa Xuan asked with a smile. Fubin's heart warmed when he heard this. Lisa Xuan did not ask him about the results of the mining. Instead, he asked if he encountered any danger. This was very heartwarming. Young master, we did not encounter any danger. There were only a few small twists and turns. But in the end, we did not disappoint you. Not only did we find 2 iron and sulfur mines in Yifang County, we also found a big coal mine. But this coal mine does not seem to be of much use to you. Fubin knew his limits and did not wait for Lisa Xuan to ask. He took the initiative to tell Lisa Xuan the results of this trip. When Lisa Xuan heard that Fubin had found 2 iron and sulfur mines in Yifang County, he was shocked. He had only marked a few rough locations on the map. He did not expect such a small place like Yifang County to have so many mines. But when he heard Fubin mention the coal mine, he could not help but smile. Huh, who says the coal mine is useless? Xiaobing, the few of you did well this time. I am very satisfied and will reward you handsomely. Huh. Chapter 1009. It was normal that Lisa Xuan did not know about Yifang County, but if it was Lan County, he would definitely know about it. In the modern era, Shaanxi province had 546 billion tons of usable reserves and 514 million tons of unusable reserves, ranking 4th in the country. This did not include the Shaanxi type of limonite or that was widely distributed but had not been explored. Among them, 3% of the discovered iron or resources were concentrated in Lan County, 2 billion tons, and Wutai Mountain, 625 billion tons. Other than iron or resources, Lan County was also rich in other mineral resources, such as coal, iron, manganese, sulfur, marble, granite, and so on. It could be said that it was a real mining county. Lan County was called Yifang County during the Tang Dynasty's Jingguan period, and it was the capital of Lan Province at that time. Therefore, it was not surprising that Fubin could find 2 iron ore mines, 2 sulfur mines, and a big coal mine in Yifang County. Thank you, young master. In Fubin's eyes, Lisa Xuan was a real big shot. Now that he could get Lisa Xuan's praise, he was overjoyed. Ahem, young master, forgive me for being blunt, but this coal mine is very difficult to mine. If we can mine a large amount of coal, it'll be fine, but if there's no coal and it's all coal, then it'll be a big loss. Faubert was obviously more mature and looked at the long term. He said to Lisa Xuan worriedly, Faubert, why is coal useful? Oh, I understand now. But Faubert, you don't have to worry. To me, coal is useful, but coal is also useful. Just as Lisa Xuan was about to ask why charcoal was useful and coal was useless, some memories of his predecessor suddenly emerged. He quickly swallowed the words that were already at the tip of his tongue and changed his words. His predecessor's memory told him that although people had started to use coal, coal was not popular yet. The history of ancient coal mining in China can be divided into 4 stages. The Pre-Qing Dynasty was the discovery and early exploitation of coal. The Western Han Dynasty to the Northern and Southern dynasties was a mature stage of coal exploitation. The Sui, Tang, and Yuan dynasties was the general development and rapid progress of coal exploitation. The Ming and Qing dynasties was the heyday of ancient coal exploitation. However, it should be noted that the coal mentioned above was mainly referring to charcoal, not coal. At least before the Song Dynasty, coal was not used on a large scale. This was because the unprocessed coal dug out from the coal mines was difficult to burn fully. On the other hand, this kind of coal would emit a lot of soot when it was burned. Therefore, the people would rather burn firewood than coal. This was because the smoke emitted from firewood was less than that from coal. It wasn't until the late Tang Dynasty that the technology of using coal to make coke appeared. According to the Tang Dynasty scholar Kong Pian's drama talk log, when the rich and powerful children of Luoyang, used coal to cook rice, they would first burn the coal to remove the smoke. This was called cooked coal or refined coal, and then they would use this refined coal to cook rice. This type of refined coal was closer to coke, but because it wasn't deliberately burned, it was only the prototype of coke. In the Song Dynasty, the coking technology was perfected, and the raw coal processing and utilization in our country entered a new stage, and the use of coal gradually became more widespread. During the Ming and Qing dynasties, the development and utilization of coal in our country had reached the heyday. Similar to the previous salt and iron dictatorship, the mining rights of coal had been nationalized, and coal mining taxes had been collected. What? Young master has a way to use raw coal? Fubin didn't think much of it, but Faubert's eyes suddenly widened. He sat up straight from the sofa and said in shock, as long as one had a little bit of common sense, they would know that if raw coal could be used, then a coal mine could bring an amazing amount of wealth. Li Zishuan didn't deny it and nodded happily and said, I do know some ways. Therefore, this coal mine must be mined. Whether it's charcoal or coal, we want it all. Faubert said excitedly, if young master really has a way to use raw coal, then of course this coal mine must be mined. Li Zishuan smiled. He muttered to himself for a while, then looked at Fubin and asked, Xiao Bing, previously you said that you met with some problems in Yifan County. What exactly happened? Fubin scratched his head and replied, Young master, it's like this. When we first arrived at Yifan County, we were targeted by a few local ruffians. Those ruffians heard our accent and knew that we came from Chong, and so they wanted to collect toll from us. Biao Zi was furious, so he gathered his brothers and beat up those ruffians. Originally, it was nothing much, but who knew that those ruffians were related to the county magistrate's son? That county magistrate's son didn't know what was right and wrong, so he ordered the bailiffs to arrest us and put us in jail. Luckily, Biaozi's martial arts were much better than those bailiffs, so he took advantage of the chaos to escape. 2 days later, the county magistrate interrogated us. Actually, it was just a formality. In court, those ruffians became the good guys, and we became the bullies who bullied the weak and feared the strong. The county magistrate and deputy county magistrate didn't even give us a chance to defend ourselves and wanted to send us to a mine in the county to do hard labor. Luckily, Biaozi arrived in time and brought along the Lan province's provincial governor's office. Those 2 days, he was carrying young master's warrant and went to the Lan province's provincial governor's office to get reinforcements. At that time, the Lan province's provincial governor was not in the government office, so the county magistrate came over. What happened after that was logical. The county magistrate of Yifan County did not teach his son well and allowed his son to keep evil slaves, disrupting the law and order. He was removed from his position and investigated by the Lan province's provincial governor. Even the deputy county magistrate was not spared. After this incident, we no longer met any obstacles when we were looking for ore veins in Yifan County. After hearing what Fubin said, Li Zishuan curiously said, Hey, there's such a thing? This Lan province's provincial governor is not bad. Xiao Bing, Thank you for your hard work. Oomph. Marquis, you don't need to sympathize with this kid. When you're outside, you should wear normal clothes to keep a low profile. Are you afraid that others will not know you are from Chang'an? There's so many people going to Yifang County. Why didn't those ruffians look for other people? Why did they look for the few of you? Isn't this your own fault? Faubert sneered and scolded them mercilessly. Fu Bin's face was immediately filled with embarrassment. Clearly, Uncle Fu's words had hit his sore spot. Li Zixuan looked at Fu Bin and laughed. Faubert, you can't say that. This person was walking on the streets and was knocked down by someone. Can you blame that person for not going out today? Xiao Bing and the rest did not break the law and were bullied by the ruffians. How can they not retaliate? Before they left, I had told them not to create trouble, but they cannot be afraid of trouble. I feel that they had done well this time. Furthermore, Xiao Bing and the rest had unintentionally helped the people of Yifang County to get rid of a big problem. Not only did they not do anything wrong, but they also did a good deed. Huh. Chapter 10:10. Thank you, young master, for your magnanimity. Fu Bin will definitely follow young master's lead. Yinhuang College, principal's office. Fu Bin was moved to tears when he heard Li Zixuan speak up for him. In fact, when they arrived at Yifang County with a huge sum of money, they were indeed a little smug. They were dressed in fancy clothes, and it was obvious that they were not ordinary people. That was why the local ruffians came looking for them. Before coming to Li Zixuan's place, his uncle had already harshly reprimanded him. Originally, he thought that he would be reprimanded again. He didn't expect that not only did Li Zixuan not reprimand him, he even spoke up for him. How could he not be touched? Huh. Li Zixuan heard this and could not help but laugh. Perhaps Fu Bin had been hanging out in the streets since he was young, and he had the aura of a ruffian, which could be heard from his words. Calling him a ruffian was not referring to him being bad. Normally, people like him were more loyal and righteous. If you treated him well, he would also treat you well. That was the general meaning of it. Are you so easy to bribe? I only spoke a few words for you, and you're already following my lead? Li Zixuan found it funny. Fu Bin quickly waved his hand and said anxiously, "It's not like that, young master. Fu Bin, have been hanging out in the streets for so many years. Whoever is sincere to me in my heart, I will." All right, that's enough. I understand everything. Li Zixuan smiled and interrupted Fu Bin, then said, "Xiao Bing, you are now familiar with Yifang County. You should be able to handle the local officials. I want to let you manage those few mines. Are you willing?" Fu Bin's body trembled and froze on the spot. Before he could say anything, Faubert quickly said, "Young master, you can't do that. Fu Bin is still young and inexperienced. How can he manage such a big mine? If this brat were to ruin young master's plans, how would this old man have the face to see young master again?" In fact, Faubert was doing this for the sake of his nephew, because he knew better than anyone else how capable Fu Bin was. Fu Bin also reacted at this time. He cupped his fists and said, "Young master, you'd better take back your order. If you want me to help you gather information or search for people, then I can do it. But I definitely can't manage a mine. I know what I'm capable of." Li Zixuan smiled. In fact, he was just testing Fu Bin's reaction. He didn't really want to hand over such a big mess to Fu Bin. Young people need to gain experience. How about this? Faubert, you send 4 trustworthy people from the workshop to Yifang County to be in charge of the mining of the 4 mines. The miners will be recruited on the spot, and their wages will be paid by the workshop. Originally, there were 5 mines, but one of the iron mines had to be handed over to the imperial court. This was the condition promised to Lier. Faubert muttered to himself for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay, this old man will arrange it." Li Zixuan then looked at Fu Bin and said, "Fu Bin, when the time comes, you will also bring the people who went with you to Yifang County to assist the 4 mine managers. After all, you're familiar with that place, so the local relations will be left to you. In addition, you should also take some time to learn how to manage a mine. A good man should do big things. If you can take charge of a mine in the future, that would be the best. Falbert will also be very pleased. Sending Fu Bin over was not only to let him manage the relations with the local government, but also to secretly monitor the 4 mine managers to see if they were embezzling anything. After all, this was a truly lucrative job. If they were diligent and responsible, then naturally it would be better. However, if someone were to play tricks, Li Zishuan would definitely not be polite. Fu Bin nodded firmly, then cupped his fist and said, "Young master, don't worry. Fu Bin will definitely not disappoint young master. You must be tired from the journey. Go back and rest for 2 days," Li Zishuan said with a smile. Fu Bin knew that Li Zishuan definitely had some things that he wanted to discuss with his uncle alone, so he tactfully took his leave. In an instant, only the 2 of them were left in the office. Falbert quickly selected the mine managers. The coal is secondary, but the iron and sulfur ores must be mined as soon as possible. We're lacking these 2 things too much. Li Zishuan picked up the cup, took a sip, and then said in a deep voice. Falbert nodded and replied, "Even if young master didn't say it, this old man will do it as soon as possible." Previously, after selling the first batch of bicycles, the workshop's iron and sulfur ores were all in short supply. However, the people's desire to buy bicycles is getting stronger and stronger. If we can't solve the problem of raw materials for bicycles as soon as possible, everyone will definitely be more disappointed in us. Fortunately, Fu Bin came back in time. Otherwise, it would be a pity if our workshop couldn't produce good things, even though we have them. Li Zishuan said, and then said, after confirming the candidates, have them come see me before they leave. I have something to tell them. No problem. Li Zishuan stood up. He frowned and thought for a while, then said, "We have to hurry up with the Yifeng mine. We also have to hurry up here." Falbert asked, "Young master, do you want to talk about iron smelting?" Li Zishuan nodded and said, "That's right. The workshop needs to prepare some iron smelting equipment. After the iron ore from Yifeng mine is shipped back, we have to start smelting immediately." Falbert looked worried and said, "It's not difficult to smelt iron on a small scale, but from young master's intention, you want to smelt iron on a large scale. In this way, the furnace required for smelting iron cannot be made in a short time. Moreover, some of the key techniques have to be figured out by yourself. If young master wants to achieve his goal quickly, he can only ask the Zhongsun family for help. After all, in Chang'an City, their iron smelting technology is the best. Zhongsun family? Which Zhongsun family could there be in Chang'an City? Li Zishuan's heart moved. He didn't expect that Zhongsun Wuji, that old fox, had already started the iron smelting business. Salt and iron, salt and iron. These 2 businesses were the most profitable in ancient times. Zhongsun Wuji was indeed an old fox. Why do we need to ask them for help? I have an even better method of smelting iron. Later on, I will draw out the blueprints of the equipment. Falbert, you just have to get someone to follow the blueprints. Li Zishuan said to Falbert. What a joke. He was an engineering genius from the 21st century. He still had countless blueprints in his mind. If he had to ask for help for such a small matter, wouldn't he be smearing the reputation of transmigrators? Falbert's eyes lit up. Then, with a strange expression, he said, "Young master, why didn't you say earlier that you have a good method of smelting iron? It's true that our workshop lacks iron, but we don't lack iron ore. This thing is much easier to buy than iron." Chapter 10:11. Li Zishuan was stunned and asked curiously, "Why is that so? Don't tell me Chang and City has a surplus of iron ore?" When he first heard Falbert say that iron ore could not be bought, he subconsciously thought that iron ore could not be bought either. But after hearing Falbert's words, it was obviously not the case. Falbert said matter-of-factly, "Young master, isn't this normal? There are only so many iron smelting factories in Chang and City. How could they consume so much iron ore? Naturally, there would be a surplus. China started smelting iron during the spring and autumn period. Due to the rich experience of smelting bronze, the progress was very fast. Pig iron and iron smelting appeared almost at the same time. The iron smelting temperature was low and there were many impurities, but the carbon content was low. It was close to that of wrought iron, with a high melting point and a soft texture. It was suitable for forging weapons. Pig iron smelting temperature was high, with a higher sulfur and phosphorus content. It was hard and brittle, but it was resistant to wear and was suitable for forging weapons. Since the Han Dynasty, various metal smelting and processing techniques had been developed comprehensively and were becoming fixed in terms of technology. For example, the 100-tempered steel technique was not used often due to its low efficiency. As the early form of the infused steel technique, it was widely used. During the Sui and Tang dynasties, the smelting technology continued to develop, but there were not many breakthroughs. They mainly followed the infused steel technique at the end of the Han Dynasty, and the smelting efficiency was not high. Furthermore, the smelting business in this era was owned by the country. People like Zhang Sun Wuji who could mine and smelt iron were few and far between. Therefore, the productivity of the people could not be unleashed, and the smelting speed could not keep up with the mining speed. Li Zishuan rolled his eyes inwardly. He thought to himself, what a shame. If I had known about this earlier, would I have waited until now? Sigh, forget it. Since it's already like this, another 10 days or half a month won't make a difference. When the smelting equipment is completed, the iron ore from Yifan County should be transported back. By then, our workshop will not lack iron anymore. Li Zishuan sighed and said helplessly, that's the only way. If young master has nothing else, this old man will return to the workshop first. Faubert could hear the confidence in Li Zishuan's words. He could not help but smile and bid farewell. Yes, Faubert, you should also take care of your body. If there's anything you need, just order your subordinates to do it. Don't tire yourself out. Li Zishuan asked with concern. To be honest, Faubert was already so old, but he was still busy. He felt very apologetic. But at the moment, he really didn't have anyone who could replace Faubert. Fubin might be able to do it in the future, but he was still too inexperienced to take on such a huge responsibility. If possible, he really hoped that Faubert would live a long life. Young master, there's no need to worry. This old man's body is fine. With that, Faubert left the room. Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and requests an audience. Afternoon, Suite du Hall. Lear was busy flipping through memorials. It was the end of the year, and there were always a lot of things to do. He had been busy for many days until late at night. Compared to the carefree Li Zishuan, he, as the emperor, was even more miserable. At this moment, the attendant at the yellow door came in and reported with a bow. Yes, let him in. Lier held the brush and said without raising his head. Yes. Not long after, Li Zishuan stepped into the hall and cupped his hands in salute. Your subject pays his respects to your majesty. No need for formalities. What's the matter? Lier cherished his words like gold and said softly. Li Zishuan strangely choked. He paused and replied. Replying to your majesty, the iron mine that you asked this subject to find has been found. It's located near the Hua family village in Yifan County. Your majesty can just send someone to receive it. Lier finally raised his head. Oh, so fast. It seems that your ability to find ores is quite effective. Don't most people look for ores for 3 to 5 years? How could there be someone like Li Zishuan who was able to find 5 mineral veins in just over a month? This time, this guy really had a mine at home. It seems that your harvest this time is not small. Tell me about it. Li Er's eyes were like torches as he hit the nail on the head. Old Li was asking the obvious. Li Zishuan did not believe that Li Er did not know this information. After all, the 100 Cavalry Special Agent Organization was not to be trifled with. The people that this subject sent found a total of 2 iron mines, 2 sulfur mines, and 1 coal mine. Your Majesty said that you only need iron ores, so this subject did not say anything about the other mines. What he meant was that old Li, as the ruler of a country, had to keep his word. What kind of person was Li Er? How could he not see Li Zishuan's cunning mind? He said unhappily, Stinky brat, do you think that I will go back on my words? How could I? Your Majesty is wise and wise. Even if everyone in the world goes back on their words, Your Majesty will definitely not. Li Zishuan chuckled as he flattered him. Li Er scoffed and said, Don't flatter us. Speaking of which, where is the other iron mine that you found? Li Zishuan's eyebrows slightly wrinkled. Then he unfurrowed them and replied, Your Majesty, the other iron mine is also in Yifeng County. However, it is about 20 li away from the Hua family village and is near Peach Blossom Village. Li Er smiled meaningfully and said, That iron mine must have more ores than the one in Hua family village, right? Li Zishuan secretly cursed Li Er for being a sly old fox. But he said, Your Majesty, how can this kind of thing be accurate? According to the people that this subject sent, the two iron mines look the same from the outside. As for the situation inside, this subject has no idea. Although this was what he said, the actual situation was more or less the same. However, when this fellow came, he compared it to the map and recalled the distribution of mineral resources in his previous life. He found that the iron mine near Peach Blossom Village had more ores than the Hua family village by 30%. This was why he gave the Hua family village's iron mine to Li Er. Li Er looked at Li Zishuan suspiciously. Although what Li Zishuan said was similar to the information that he received, he could not help but suspect that there was something fishy going on. After all, Li Zishuan was too clever. If he was not careful, he would be tricked by him. This subject will believe you for now. After all, there were so many ores that he would not be able to refine them all. After a while, Li Er helplessly sighed and said, In the next few days, this subject will let the Ministry of Works start mining. If you have nothing else to do, you can go and do your own things. The subtext was, if you have nothing else to do, you can get lost. Li Zishuan did not like to stay here, so he straightforwardly said his goodbyes. Your Majesty is wise. This subject still has things to do at the academy, so I will take my leave first. After he finished speaking, he saw that Li Er nodded in agreement and quickly turned to leave. Chapter 10-12. After coming out of the palace, Li Zishuan went straight back to Yinshan. He had to quickly draw the drawings of the equipment needed to make iron, because these things were not easy to make at all. Wife, I will be in seclusion in the study for the next 2 days. If there is no urgent matter, don't let anyone disturb me. Back home, Li Zishuan said to Han Yushi. Yinshan Villa was good because it was far away from the main city. Usually there were few people and it was very quiet. Moreover, there were beautiful mountains and clear waters here. It was a treasured place for self-cultivation. But husband, don't tire yourself out. We don't lack anything now. Why do you have to work so hard? Han Yushi obviously understood what Li Zishuan was going to do. It was not the first time a similar situation had happened, so she said with a worried face. Wife, don't worry. With your husband's physique, it is impossible for him to tire himself out. I don't believe that when husband is done, I will fight with you for 300 rounds. Li Zishuan smiled and pinched Han Yushi's pretty face, then said indecently. Of course, even though he said that, he was still very grateful for his wife's concern. Husband, Han Yushi was ashamed and angry. She stomped her feet and said coquettishly, but Li Zishuan had already slipped away at this time. Blast furnace. If you want to improve the efficiency of iron making, you must build a blast furnace. In the study, Li Zishuan muttered to himself in front of a large piece of white paper on the desk. In modern industry, the methods of iron making included blast furnace method, direct reduction method, melting reduction method, plasma method, and so on. Blast furnace iron making was the main method of iron making in modern society. Its output accounted for more than 95% of the world's total pig iron production. Blast furnace iron making was a complicated process. The raw materials used were iron, ore, limestone, and coke. The reaction in the blast furnace was mainly divided into 3 parts. The first part was the process of preparing the reducing agent, The second part was the main principle of iron making, and the third part was the process of removing impurities and forming slag. However, the iron smelted by the blast furnace was not pure and contained a small amount of impurities, so it was called pig iron. In the process of smelting iron ore, raw materials such as iron ore, coke, and limestone are layered into the blast furnace, iron smelting furnace, according to a certain proportion. A large amount of oxygen-rich air heated by the hot blast furnace is blown into the blast furnace through the air inlet, so that the coke is burned to form carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide then reacts with the hot coke on the upper layer to reduce into carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide was added from the top of the furnace and reacted with the falling iron ore. The iron oxides were gradually reduced to liquid iron, commonly known as molten iron. After the restored liquid iron accumulated to a certain extent, it was released from the bottom of the furnace. When smelting iron, limestone was added to create slag. Its purpose was to cause the iron ore with a high melting point. Its main component was silica to react with limestone, forming calcium silicate and the like floating on top of the molten iron, forming slag and separating it from the molten iron. In fact, blast furnaces were not a patent of modern people. As early as the Song Dynasty, this method of smelting iron was popularized. According to historical records, during the Yuanfeng period of the Northern Song Dynasty, the imperial weapons supervisor set up blast furnaces on both sides of the Bian River. The red light of smelting iron was reflected in the sun, day and night. At the peak of production, the annual iron and steel production in northern China alone reached more than 70,000 tons. One must know that the British Empire only reached 70,000 to 80,000 tons of iron and steel production 700 years later. At that time, it had already started the Industrial Revolution. From this, one could see how powerful the Song Dynasty was at that time. It was just that at that time, there were some famous generals and sages missing. If Li Er's team of civil and military officials were sent to the Song Dynasty, perhaps they could really create a super prosperous era. TSK. Luckily, I traveled to the Tang Dynasty. If I had traveled to the Song Dynasty or after the Song Dynasty, how would I be able to use blast furnaces to show off? Li Zishuan's thoughts had already flown off to God knows where, only to hear him muttering to himself. In some later YY novels, the protagonist traveled to the Song Dynasty or the Ming Dynasty and built blast furnaces to show off. Those were all pure nonsense. If the protagonists really did that, they would be slapped in the face instead of showing off. Shaking his head, Li Zishuan shook off those messy thoughts in his mind. After pondering for a while, he began to draw a blueprint. At this time, he already had a three-dimensional model of the blast furnace in his mind, and naturally, he had become a human printer. He intended to completely replicate the blast furnaces that were often used in modern ironworks, and then modify them according to the current conditions of the Tang Dynasty. This was not an easy job. The structure of blast furnaces was not very complicated. In the Great Movement, at the end of the 1950s, people all over the country were called to smelt iron and steel. Even some elementary school students, villagers, and non-staple store clerks formed groups to build blast furnaces to smelt iron and steel. But the structure of blast furnaces was by no means simple. The technical level of blast furnaces in modern China was about the same as that of the Song Dynasty. In theory, they could smelt iron, but the technical mastery was not up to standard, so most of them were left unfinished. Li Zishuan wanted to build a blast furnace, not a defective one. If he wanted to build one, he wanted to build the best one. Generally, a complete blast furnace was composed of shell, a throat, a body, a waist, a belly, a hearth, a bottom, a foundation, a lining, and a throat guard plate. The shell referred to the outermost layer of the blast furnace. Its main function was to stabilize the blast furnace and protect the furnace body from leakage. The body of the blast furnace iron ore was mainly in the body of the blast furnace for indirect reduction. The throat of the blast furnace was the uppermost part of the blast furnace body. It was shaped like a cylinder. The raw materials for smelting iron were added from the throat of the blast furnace. The gas was also discharged from the throat of the blast furnace. The throat guard plate referred to the protection plate of the throat of the blast furnace. The waist of the blast furnace was the largest in diameter. It connected the body and the belly of the blast furnace. The belly of the blast furnace was in the shape of an inverted cone. It was the main area of the blast furnace for melting and making slag. The hearth was used for fuel combustion, slag and iron reaction, storage, and gas emission. It was shaped like a cylinder. The bottom of the blast furnace was located at the bottom of the blast furnace. The bottom of the blast furnace was subjected to the static pressure of the charge, slag, and molten iron. It was also subjected to the high temperature, mechanical, and chemical corrosion of 2,000 to 4,500 degrees Celsius. The main function of the furnace base was to evenly distribute the weight borne by the blast furnace to the ground. Its shape was also gradually expanded from top to bottom. Generally, there were circles or polygons to reduce the uneven distribution of thermal stress. Time passed bit by bit. Even though Li Zishuan had the super speed of a humanoid printer, it was already dark when all the internal and external structures of a blast furnace were drawn. Bang, bang. Just as Li Zishuan was intoxicated by the sea of construction machinery, there were 2 knocks on the door, followed by a series of footsteps. Li Zishuan frowned at first, but then he relaxed because he knew that Han Yushi pushed the door and came in just by listening to the footsteps. Although they had been married for less than a year, the husband and wife had already engraved everything about each other in their hearts, including the sound of footsteps. Husband, let's eat something first. It's not a big deal anyway. Your health is the most important. Han Yushi put the food box on another table and turned back to speak to Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan put away his thoughts, clapped his hands, got up, and walked toward Han Yushi. Thank you for the meal, my wife. Sigh. I didn't feel hungry at first, but when I smelled the aroma of the food, the gluttonous worm in my stomach began to make a ruckus. Even the god of cookery in the sky would probably have to admit defeat when he meets my wife. Li Zishuan sat down and said with a smile when he saw Han Yushi take out 2 plates of fragrant dishes from the food box. Husband, stop fooling around. Hurry up and eat. Han Yushi glanced at him and said coquettishly, Eat, eat, eat. Aren't we eating? Wife, do you want to eat some too? No, husband, eat. I've already eaten. Han Yushi responded, and then turned her gaze to the several large drawings on the desk. The complicated and winding lines on the drawings seemed to have a life of their own, outlining a huge and majestic blast furnace. Perhaps it was because Li Zishuan's drawings were too lifelike, but Han Yushi seemed to be able to feel the terrifying heat in the furnace and couldn't help but take 2 steps back. What? Is my wife still interested in engineering? Li Zishuan asked with great interest while chewing the food in his mouth. No, I'm just looking around. Han Yushi came back to her senses. She thought for a moment and said, when I saw that my husband's drawings were so good, I was thinking that if my husband were to use this technique in painting, he wouldn't lose to Yin Xiaojian, soon to be Yin Liban. Don't think that engineering drawings were all stiff and unesthetic lines. The key was to look at the craftsmanship of the person who drew them. The engineering drawings of a skilled person could definitely feel the beauty of a work of art. Li Zishuan now belonged to this kind of person. Oh, leave things like drawing to Yin Xiaojian and the others. Your husband doesn't have the time for that. Although I'm outstanding, I can't do everything. I have to leave a way out for others, right? Li Zishuan said smugly, half-jokingly. Han Yushi covered her mouth and laughed when she heard that. Husband, how can you praise yourself? Aren't you ashamed? Li Zishuan rolled his eyes. Why is it that my wife can praise him, but your husband can't? Han Yushi shook her head and couldn't be bothered to argue. At this moment, she suddenly thought of something and said, Oh, right. Husband, I helped you lock the drawings you drew last time in the cabinet. Why didn't you use them? Did you forget? She was actually referring to the generator blueprints that Li Zishuan had drawn last time. Not for the time being. It's almost the end of the year. I'm too lazy to bother with those things. Let's have a peaceful new year first. Li Zishuan replied. Yes, yes. In the past, I spent the new year with Iron Egg and Daddy. Husband, can you bring them over for the new year this year? At the mention of the new year, Han Yushi's eyes instantly glowed. Although she was already a wife, she was only 13 or 14 years old. Perhaps she still retained some innocence in her heart and looked forward to the liveliness and joy during the new year. Huh, why can't I? As long as my wife is happy, I'll even pluck the moon from the sky for you, let alone such a small matter. Lisa Schwan laughed. Logically speaking, even if Han Yushi didn't say it, he would do it when the time came. How could his father-in-law and brother-in-law be alone during the new year? Naturally, it would be lively when the two families celebrated the new year together. Hee hee, the moon in the sky is bare. What do I need it for? But I still thank you for agreeing, Han Yushi said with a smile. Obviously, she had used the Academy's telescope to see the moon before. Oh, why are you thanking me as a family? Burp. All right, I'm done eating. Wife, you should go and rest first. I'll sleep a little later tonight. Lisa Schwan put down his bowl and chopsticks and burped with satisfaction. Although the general blueprint of the blast furnace was drawn, there were still many details that he needed to consider one by one. Husband, can't you draw it tomorrow? There's no need to rush, right? When Han Yushi heard that, she knew that Lisa Schwan was going to work overtime tonight, so she tried to persuade him. Hey, some things have to be done in one go. If you let go of this breath, it will take a long time to find it again. Wife, you don't have to worry. I'll go and rest when I'm tired. I won't force myself. Lisa Schwan said softly as he stroked his wife's soft, jet-black hair. In fact, with his current martial arts cultivation, even if he didn't sleep for 3 days and 3 nights, he could still endure it. That's good. Husband, you have to keep your word. I won't disturb you anymore. Han Yushi knew that she couldn't persuade Lisa Schwan to change his mind, so she compromised. Wife, go and have a rest. Lisa Schwan said with a smile. Han Yushi nodded and left the study with the plate and food box. The study suddenly became quiet again. Fire-resistant. First of all, the furnace must be fire-resistant. Lisa Schwan looked at the blueprint that he had drawn before and was lost in thought. After a while, he muttered to himself, Yes, fire-resistant cement. I'll get the fire-resistant cement, by the way. Recently, I'll ask Fubin to go to Shuo province and get some bauxite back. Suddenly, Lisa Schwan's eyes lit up and he said excitedly, Shuo province, Shaanxi. His college roommate in his previous life came from this city. That guy really had a mine at home. It was not a coal mine, nor an iron mine, but a bauxite mine. Lisa Schwan went with him to see it during the National Day holiday one year. Coincidentally, his roommate had bragged to him about the history of Shuo province, saying that the name Shuo province already existed during the Northern Zhou Dynasty. Although it was renamed to Mai County during the Sui Dynasty, Li Yuan changed it back during the Tang Dynasty. It could be said that it was a famous historical city. The current Lisa Schwan, relying on his memory, could even mark the detailed location of his roommate's bauxite mine on a map. Hee hee, old classmate, I'm sorry, but let me borrow your mind first. You don't mind, right? Lisa Schwan was like a neurotic, talking to air. Bauxite was also known as high alumina clay. The main minerals were diaspore, baymite, gibbsite, kaolinite, etc. It had a high alumina content. After grinding and calcining with limestone, it became fire-resistant cement. It was directly pressed into bricks and could be fired into fire-resistant bricks. The lowest refractory temperature could reach more than 1,500 degrees. In fact, the small blast furnaces of the Song Dynasty were generally built directly with clay, but they did not have a long lifespan. Lisa Schwan wanted to build a blast furnace that was closest to the ones used in modern steel factories. So this kind of high-grade fire-resistant material used in modern steel furnaces was naturally used. What's more, he still had the bauxite mine that his old classmate left for him. It would be a waste not to use it. Chapter 10:13. According to the statistics of modern society, Shaanxi was the province with the largest reserves of bauxite in the country. It was reasonable to say that it should be easy to find bauxite. However, if Lisa Schwan wanted to find it in the shortest time possible, he could only go to his old classmate's iron mine. Who asked him to go to that bauxite mine? Who asked the modern Shuaizhou to still be called Shuaizhou in the Tang Dynasty? There were so many coincidences in this world. After solving the material problem of the furnace lining, Li Zixuan was faced with another problem, which was the heat dissipation problem inside the furnace. The melting point of iron was around 1,500 degrees Celsius, and the interior of the furnace was a relatively enclosed space. If the heat wasn't released in time, this thing was undoubtedly a time bomb. Once the heat accumulated to a certain degree, destroying the equipment was a small matter, but the damage to the personnel after the explosion was a big deal. Modern furnaces used special fans with powerful horsepower. Naturally, the cooling effect was great. However, in this era, there was no electricity. Even if there was a fan, it could not be turned. In fact, when it came to cooling fans, one had to talk about the ancient water drains. Many people thought that the water drains had the word water in them, so they should be irrigation tools. In fact, the water drains were invented by Du Shi during the Eastern Han Dynasty. At first, the water drains were called human drains, which used human power. Then, they used animal power and horses, which were called horse drains. Until Du Shi used water drains, it was called water drains. In the future, the furnace in the workshop could use this type of water drains to dissipate heat. However, the dam on the Ba River had not been built yet. Without a certain drop in the water, it would be difficult for the water drains to turn. Let's use animal drains to dissipate heat first. Next year, we will build the dam and hydropower station. After the power grid is set up, we will think about other things. Li Zixuan muttered to himself. Thinking of this, he picked up the pen and began to draw. With his current engineering skills and drawing skills, drawing an improved version of the saddle, a blower that was pulled by a horse, was not a problem. In addition to blowing in air from the outside, the horse drains the internal heat of the furnace. It could also bring oxygen to the fire pool in the furnace and promote the combustion of the fuel. On a winter night, everything was silent. There were no sounds of insects or birds. The only sound that could be heard in the study was the rustling sound of pencil rubbing against paper. Yinshan was located outside of Chang and city, so there was no sound from the night watchman. For Li Zixuan, it was convenient for him to concentrate on thinking and drawing. Under his modification, the blast furnace moved from modern times gradually lost its original appearance, but its efficiency did not decrease much. Moreover, the blast furnace after the modification was more and more suitable for the conditions and environment of the Tang Dynasty. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Li Zixuan hadn't left the study for 2 whole days. Han Yushi, who knew her husband's character, didn't persuade him to go back to his room to rest even though she wanted to, because she knew that it would be useless to persuade Li Zixuan. Instead, it would only add to his troubles. In the past 2 days, Li Zixuan had been eating and living in the study. In front of him, there was already a thick pile of drawings. Those drawings that had been ruined were thrown all over the floor. On the other hand, his face did not look haggard at all. This was all thanks to the enormous spiritual power brought to him by the Supreme Mystery Sutra, as well as the endless flow of inner strength. Otherwise, if it were someone else, they would have collapsed from exhaustion. Why did he work so hard? Li Zixuan might not be able to answer this question himself. Logically speaking, he now had power, and a beautiful wife. He only needed to eat and wait for death like other rich second generations. There was no reason for him to work so hard. If there was a reason, perhaps it could only be said that this was the stubbornness of an engineering nerd. Phew. Done. On the morning of the 3rd day, Li Zixuan checked all the drawings that he had drawn in the past few days. After finding that there were no problems, he let out a long sigh of relief and laughed. Creak. Almost at the same time, Han Yushi pushed the door open and entered. Her eyes were red as she said with heartache, "Husband, since you're done, quickly go and rest. Leave this place to this concubine." Judging from her speed, it was obvious that this woman had been waiting outside the study all this time. Li Zixuan was a little touched. This little woman, how heartbreaking. Your husband isn't as delicate as you think. Don't worry, my wife. Why don't we go to the room to study the art of the boudoir? Li Zishuan touched his wife's smooth cheeks and said with a smile. Han Yushi said angrily, "Husband, why are you still thinking about this at a time like this? Go to sleep. If you're still not asleep after 15 minutes, I'll just kill myself." To be able to say such things, it seemed that she was really anxious and angry. Li Zishuan quickly said, Okay. Your husband will go to sleep now. Wife, don't say such things in the future. Sigh. It seems that I have to wait a little longer before I can rest. Just as he was about to move to the bedroom, he suddenly stopped and said, Husband, you. Wife, don't be anxious. It's not that your husband doesn't want to sleep, but there are guests. Han Yushi was about to get angry, but Li Zishuan interrupted her and said. After saying that, this guy walked out of the house slowly with his hands behind his back. The reason for that was that he heard footsteps coming from outside the house. Father-in-law, Faubert, Xiaobing, you're here? After a while, Li Zishuan's laughter came from outside the house. Han Yushi originally thought that Li Zishuan was just bluffing her, but after hearing that father-in-law, she couldn't be bothered to be angry with Li Zishuan and quickly ran out. Outside the house, Faubert and Han Li brought Fu Bin and 4 other middle-aged men over. Young master, I didn't dare to neglect the task that you gave me earlier. I'm here today to report back to you. Faubert stroked his beard and laughed. Let's talk inside. Father, you're here? I'll go and get you some tea now. When Han Yushi came out of the study room, Li Zishuan and the rest had just entered the main hall. When she saw Han Li, she said happily. Although the Yinshan residence was very close to the Han family village, after she moved in with Li Zishuan, Han Li rarely came over. Usually, he would only come over when he had something to do. That was why she was so excited now. Wife, don't forget to get Faubert a cup of tea too. Li Zishuan laughed and joked. Han Yushi just realized that her father wasn't the only one who came. She quickly said guiltily, Of course I won't forget. Everyone let out a burst of friendly laughter. Li Zishuan looked at Han Li and said with a smile, Father-in-law, you have to visit us more often in the future. Otherwise, Yushi will treat you as a guest. Chapter 10:14. Li Zishuan understood why Han Lijing didn't come over often. It was mainly because he didn't want to disturb them, but he didn't think it was necessary. They were a family, so why did they have to make it seem like 2 different families? Besides, he and Han Yushi usually lived at night, so they couldn't be disturbed during the day. Han Lijing looked a little embarrassed. He coughed and said, This girl, Sai. It's my fault that I don't come to Yinshan often. But in the future, even if I want to, I won't have the chance to come over. Li Zishuan asked curiously, Why is that? Is father-in-law going on a long trip? Han Tianhu said, Let's not talk about this first. Manager Fu is looking for you. Let's talk about him first. Li Zishuan could only suppress the doubts in his heart and looked at Faubert. At this moment, Fu Bo said, Young master, you asked me to pick 4 people to manage the mine in Yifan County. I brought them here today. This is Ni Taifeng, this is Yao Jie, this is Yu Xingjin, and this is Shang Renguang. They're all old fellows in the workshop and can handle things independently. Faubert said as he pointed at the 4 middle-aged men he brought and introduced them. Li Zishuan knew Ni Taifeng. Ni Taifeng was the leader of the 5th Regiment of the Yanhuang College Construction Corps. This person had superb skills and was the technical backbone of the workshop. Do you know the mission of this trip? Li Zishuan nodded and gestured for them to sit down. Ni Taifeng said, Marquis, Manager Fu already told us before we came. We all know the mission of this trip. Then do you know that if you are busy there, you might not be able to make it back before the new year? Li Zishuan asked again. The 4 people's faces froze. Finally, Ni Taifeng gritted his teeth and said, Marquis' big matter is important. To me, it doesn't matter where I spend the new year. Marquis, I don't care. Me too. The other 3 people also expressed their opinions. They knew that it was a rare opportunity to work for Li Zishuan face to face. Good. Don't worry. I will remember your efforts and I will not mistreat you in the future. Li Zishuan nodded and praised. Marquis is too polite. The four people said politely. Li Zishuan looked at Li Zishuan and said, Xiao, how's your preparation? There was a hint of excitement in Fu Bin's eyes as he said, Young master, I'm ready. Biaozi is also fine. We can leave at any time. Li Zishuan, that's good. The sooner the better, the better. You will leave tomorrow. Oh, Xiao, I have something I need you to. Wait, I want to get something to get to my husband. I will go and get it. Coincidentally, Han Yushi came over with 6 cups of hot tea on a tray. Faubert, Han Lijing, and I Taifeng, Yao Jie, Yu Xingzhen, and Shang Ringguang each had a cup. Fu Bin was a junior and naturally did not have tea to drink. As for Li Zishuan, Han Yushi knew that he did not like tea and did not do anything unnecessary. When she heard Li Zishuan and Fu Bin's conversation, she quickly agreed to this task. After a while, she took out a stack of drawings and a map from the study. She then passed the map to Li Zishuan and said, My husband, do you want this? Not only did she know that Li Zishuan wanted Fu Bin to mine bauxite, but she also knew that Li Zishuan was going to hand over the drawings to Faubert. That was why she took them out. As for how she knew about these drawings, it was because Li Zishuan told her. Yes, this is it. Li Zishuan took the map and praised it. He then turned to Fu Bin and said, Come, Xiao Bing. Look here. Fu Bin curiously looked over and stared at the map for a while before asking, Young master, why are you showing me the map of Shuazhou? Hey, of course it is to mine. Li Zishuan remembered that he was going to mine his old classmate's mine and could not help but laugh. He used a pencil to draw a circle on the map of Shuazhou and said, Here, yes, it should be here. Tomorrow, the few of you will go to Shuazhou first. It should be near the place I drew. There should be some white or grayish-white soil. Dig some back for me as soon as possible. Dig? Young master, did I hear wrongly? When Fu Bin heard this, he was dumbfounded. He asked again with uncertainty. The rest of the people in the room were also curious. They all looked at Li Zishuan, wanting to hear an explanation. Li Zishuan said angrily, You did not hear wrongly. This thing is very useful to me. As for what it is, you will know when the time comes. Here, take the map. Now go back and pack up. Tomorrow morning, you will leave with Biaozi and the rest. Fu Bin had a stomach full of questions and replied in a muffled voice, Yes, young master. Then he said goodbye to Faubert and left. And I Taifeng and the other 3 also said goodbye when they saw that there was nothing else for them to do. Only the 3 of them were left in the room. Young master, why are you so sure that there's a bauxite mine there? Faubert finally could not hold back the questions in his heart and asked. At this time, no one used aluminum. The history of aluminum use in China should have started in the late Qing Dynasty. Therefore, Faubert naturally did not know the term bauxite. He could only use bauxite mine as a replacement. If I said that I dreamed about it, Faubert, you would definitely not believe me. Then I'll tell you the truth. I did dream about it. Li Zishuan pretended to think for a while. Then he suddenly, mischievously, Faubert's mouth twitched. He really wanted to pinch Li Zishuan's ear and ask, What kind of education did you receive? Why are you so mischievous? Cough, cough. The premise was that he had to know what mischievous meant. Xiao Xian, this time I will go with them to Yifang County, right? Han Lijing, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly said, Father. Han Yushi opened her small mouth in shock. Her face was full of confusion. When Li Zishuan heard this, he finally understood what Han Lijing meant when he said, Even if this old man wants to come here in the future, I won't have many chances to come here. He hurriedly rejected, Don't. Father-in-law, we already have enough people. You can just stay at home and enjoy your life. Why do you have to travel so far and tire yourself out? Han Tianyu slapped his daughter's hand away and said, I am taking advantage of the fact that I can still do some work to help my dear son-in-law reduce your burden. Besides, now that Iron Egg has entered Yanhuang College and Yushi is married to you, I have no more worries. I can go to Hudong Road to help you look after the mine. What about the village? Li Zixuan did not want his father-in-law to go so far to work, so he tried to find an excuse. Han Tianhu said, "You don't have to worry. I have already handed over all the affairs of the Han village to Brother Hanyan. There will be no trouble." Chapter 10:15. Father, your leg is not good. How can you go so far away? Yinshan residence, the family main hall. Han Yushi heard that her father was determined to go to Hudong Road and couldn't help but speak up. Han Lijing smiled and said, "Yushi, your father is not so delicate. Besides, I'm going to Hudong Road to help Shaoxian manage the mine, not to fight. The old injury on my leg is not a problem." Li Zixuan also wanted to persuade him a little more, but he heard Han Lijing continue. In the war between the Tang Empire and the Tujue, countless soldiers were buried in the Hudong Road. So many years have passed. This old man can still see my old comrades in my dreams. This time, this old man will also bring a few jugs of good wine to pay respects to my brothers. In the 5th year of Wuda, Sheli Khan tore up the peace treaty with the Tang Empire and sent out tens of thousands of soldiers. Together with the exiled Liu Haida, they attacked the new city of Hudong Road. Li Yuan sent out 3 armies. Crown Prince Li Jinsheng went to Changzhou Road, and Prince Qin Li Shimin went to Qinzhou Road to resist the 2 armies of the Turks. In addition, he sent Yinzhou supervisor Guizai to Yunzhong to ambush Sheli Khan's army. Left Wei, General Duan Datsao went to Shazhou to cut off the Turks' retreat. At that time, Qin Xiong was a general under Li Shimin and naturally went to battle with him. As Qin Xiong's personal guard, Han Tianhu naturally had to accompany him. It was also in that battle that Han Tianhu was shot in the thigh by the enemy in order to save Qin Xiong and completely became a cripple. Even so, he was considered lucky because in that battle, the Tang Empire lost thousands of soldiers. He was lucky to be able to keep his life in the end. In ancient times, when a war was over, it was impossible to transport all the bodies of the fallen back, and this was also unrealistic. In normal circumstances, the dead soldiers of one side would be collectively buried, and only the bodies of high officials and generals would be brought back to the imperial court. Thus, the soldiers who had died in battle had all been buried at the border between the Hudong Circuit and the Turks. Li Zixuan listened silently and finally stopped trying to dissuade him. In this world, other than family, friendship, and love, there was also a pure and hot-blooded feeling, and that was the friendship of a soldier. There were people who had been on the battlefield together, and they were closer than real brothers. They could truly trust each other with their backs, without any scruples. After a pause, Li Zixuan looked at Han Yushi. Although the latter's face showed reluctance, there was more understanding and relief. He then turned to Han Lijing and said, "Father-in-law, you can go. As for the mine, I will instruct Enai Typhone and the others to listen to your orders. If anything happens over there, you can look for Fu Bin. That kid is quite familiar with the local authorities in the Lan province." Hearing this, Han Lijing's eyes revealed a trace of anticipation and excitement. He nodded and said, "Don't worry. What have I not seen in my life? It's just a long trip. It's not a big deal." Li Zixuan thought for a moment and suddenly said, "Father-in-law, after you go to Hudong Road, remember to tell Enai Typhone and the others not to treat the miners harshly. They're all people who dig for food in the fields. It's not easy." This sentence made Han Lijing a little confused, but in the end, he nodded and replied, "Of course." In fact, he didn't know Li Zixuan's painstaking efforts. Since ancient China's use of minerals became more and more widespread, and mining technology became more and more mature, more and more mine owners tried to recruit people to mine. However, most of them liked to withhold the miners' wages and food, and they also squeezed the miners' strength too much. During the Ming Dynasty, there were many miners' revolts in the mines. Li Zixuan's instructions were to prevent trouble before it happened. Han Yushi interrupted at this time. "Father, then you must come back before the new year. Your daughter, Iron Egg, and mother are all waiting for you to come back for the new year." Hearing Han Yushi mention his late wife, Han Lijing's eyes immediately flashed with a trace of gentleness. He nodded solemnly and said firmly, "Okay, Father will definitely come back before the new year." After that, he got up and said, "Little Xian, you chat with Steward Fu. This old man will go back and pack up. Tomorrow, we will leave together with Fu Bin and the others." Obviously, he could also see that Li Zixuan and Faubert still had important matters to discuss. Father-in-law, why don't you stay for lunch?" Li Zixuan urged him to stay. Han Yushi also looked over with eager eyes. However, Han Lijing said, no, no. This old man still has to go to Chang and to buy some things. You guys eat." After that, he looked at Li Zixuan, paused, and sighed inexplicably. "Little Xian, Yushi marrying you is this child's blessing. This old man will never tell you to treat her well, because this old man knows that you are a kind person. Even if this old man doesn't tell you, you will treat her well. This child is luckier than her mother in the past." With a sigh, Han Lijing waved his hand, turned around, and walked out of the door. His back looked somewhat miserable. "Hubby," Han Yushi felt an inexplicable sadness in her heart. She looked at Li Zixuan with tears in her eyes. She wanted to say something, but stopped. "It's okay. Father-in-law must be missing mother-in-law." Li Zixuan stroked Han Yushi's soft long hair and comforted her. Ahem. Seeing that this young couple had neglected an old man like him, Faubert quickly coughed. Otherwise, he didn't know what these two people in front of him would do. "Young master." Regarding the matter of the ironworks, I wonder if you have any ideas? When Faubert saw that the couple had finally noticed him, he quickly asked. Li Zixuan came back to his senses and took a stack of blueprints from Han Yushi's hands. He handed it to Faubert and said, "I have an idea. Here, Faubert, take a look." A thick stack of blueprints suddenly fell into his hands. Faubert couldn't help but be shocked. "So many? Young master, did you start preparing for the steelmaking matter a few months ago?" In his words, there was some admiration for Li Zixuan's foresight. To be honest, he did know that Li Zixuan drew blueprints quickly, but he never would have thought that Li Zixuan would draw so quickly. He had at least 200 or 300 blueprints in his hands. How could he have started preparing a few months ago? He only started drawing 2 or 3 days ago. He didn't sleep well for 2 consecutive nights. When Han Yushi heard Faubert's words, she couldn't help but say unhappily. Under normal circumstances, when Li Zixuan was talking about business with others, she rarely interrupted. This time, when she saw that Li Zixuan didn't care about his body, she was really angry. What? 2 or 3 days? Faubert was really shocked. The blueprints in his hands were almost thrown to the ground by him. Fortunately, he didn't have a heart attack or anything. Otherwise, he might have fainted by now. Even so, he was scared out of his wits. To be able to draw 200 or 300 such high-quality blueprints in 2 or 3 days, Faubert couldn't help but say to himself, "Is my young master a monster with 8 hands?" Chapter 10:16. Young master, you haven't slept for 2 nights? Then you should go and rest. We'll talk about the ironworks later. After recovering from his shock, Faubert finally caught the other layer of meaning in Han Yushi's words. It was also the most important layer of meaning. He hurriedly said to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan shook his head and said, "Of course not. I had to take a nap halfway through. Let's not talk about this first. Faubert, you should take a look at the blueprint first. If there's anything wrong, we could discuss it together. The ironworks must be put on the agenda as soon as possible. Then, okay." Seeing that Li Zixuan was so insistent, Faubert knew that he could not persuade him otherwise. He lowered his head and began to look at the blueprint. Li Zixuan's blueprint was placed in a very particular order. First, the overall structure, then the specific structure. Faubert first saw the overall layout of the ironworks in the future, then the overall structure of each part, and then the specific structure of some of the key components. As he flipped through the blueprint page by page, a huge ironworks with a style completely different from this era gradually appeared in Faubert's mind, After doing engineering for a lifetime, Faubert still had the ability to visualize through drawings. A towering iron furnace stood in the middle of the factory. Pipes extended out from the furnace like the roots of an old tree, densely entrenched in the surroundings. Two large chimneys towered into the clouds, as if they wished they could reach the clouds. They were constantly spewing thick smoke into the sky. The various machines in the workshop rumbled incessantly. Faubert was extremely shocked. Clearly, Li Zixuan's ironworks was not a small scale. Its scale was definitely one of the largest in the entire Tang Empire. But why did this steelmaking method feel so familiar to him? Young master, why does this look a little like a shaft furnace? Faubert suddenly remembered and asked. China was the first country in the world to use shaft furnaces to make iron. In ancient times, our country mainly used shaft furnaces to smelt pig iron. The iron shaft furnace was developed from the copper shaft furnace. At the end of the spring and autumn period, the method of smelting pig iron with a shaft furnace appeared. However, this method was not fully popularized until the Northern Song Dynasty. Shaft furnace smelting was an economical and effective method of smelting iron. Material was loaded from the top, and air was blown from the bottom to form the relative movement of the furnace material falling and the gas rising. The high-temperature gas produced by the combustion passes through the layer of material and ascends to transfer the heat to the furnace material. The carbon monoxide contained in it also had a reduction effect on iron oxide. In this way, the heat and chemical energy of combustion could be fully utilized. The lower layer of the furnace material was gradually reduced and melted, while the upper layer of the furnace material was slowly lowered from the top of the furnace. The furnace material was preheated to a higher temperature. Blast furnace iron making was born out of shaft furnace iron making. However, due to certain structural optimizations, the efficiency and quality of blast furnace iron making were far superior to shaft furnace iron making. Li Zixuan said with a smile, "This is not completely a shaft furnace. Faubert, if you look carefully, you should be able to tell the difference. I call this furnace a blast furnace." Faubert closed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Then he opened his eyes and said, "There are indeed many differences, but this old man doesn't know whether these differences are good or bad." Li Zixuan confidently said, "Of course they are good." With that, he pointed to a drawing and said, "For example, the air inlet of this blast furnace. Before it enters the furnace, I put it together. There is a fire pool below that is separated from the air inlet. It contains coal. Before the air enters the furnace, it will be heated to a very, very hot temperature. It can even directly melt iron. In this way, the efficiency of smelting iron will be greatly improved." Air preheating was the most critical step in modern steel production to improve the efficiency of smelting iron. High air temperature was also one of the main technical characteristics of modern blast furnace iron making. First of all, the heat required by blast furnace smelting was partly from the combustion heat released by the fuel in the furnace, and partly from the physical heat brought in by the high-temperature hot air. The more heat brought into the blast furnace by the hot air, the less fuel combustion heat was required and the lower the fuel consumption. Therefore, increasing the air temperature could significantly reduce the fuel consumption and production cost. In addition, increasing the air temperature could also help to increase the theoretical combustion temperature in front of the tuyere. This would increase the temperature in the convoluted area of the tuyere and increase the heat in the furnace. This would help to increase the combustion rate of the pulverized coal, increase the amount of coal injected, and further reduce the coke ratio. Therefore, air preheating was the key technology for the blast furnace to achieve large-scale coal injection. It was also an important technological advancement in the history of blast furnace iron making. In Li Zixuan's impression, no one in the world had mastered this technology before the Industrial Revolution. Faubert seemed to understand something. He thoughtfully nodded and said, "What young master said seems to make sense. Maybe we could get a try." Li Zixuan laughed and said, "Actually, the benefits of this blast furnace are more than this. Faubert, You will slowly realize it in the future. Now, the most important thing is to build this iron-making factory. As for the interior of the furnace, I intend to use the white earth ores from Shuozhou to make the refractory material. We will wait for Xiaobing to transport the earth back. Faubert, your main task now is to look at the blueprints and see if there are any problems with the iron-making factory. Li Zishuan did not intend to build the first blast furnace on a large scale. The effective volume of the blast furnace on the blueprints was only about 100 cubic meters. In modern society, the world's largest effective volume blast furnace was Shagong Huasheng's blast furnace in China. The effective volume was 5,860 cubic meters, and the annual production of steel was close to 30 million tons. So his iron-making factory was only a small workshop in modern times. But in ancient times, it was definitely a giant. There should not be any big problems. At most, it will be a little troublesome. I will gather the craftsmen to plan this as soon as possible. Young master, you should have a good rest first. Don't tire yourself out. Faubert looked at the blueprints again and said after pondering for a long time. Li Zishuan finally heaved a sigh of relief. In fact, compared to most transmigrators, he was definitely considered lucky. This was because he had a workshop and had many excellent craftsmen by his side. Many new ideas. He only needed to draw out the blueprints, and the craftsmen behind him would think of ways to realize his ideas. He only needed to spend a little effort to draw the blueprints. Thank you for your concern, Faubert. My body is still fine, but you should also take care of your body. Don't tire yourself out. Li Zishuan smiled warmly and said. Faubert shook his head and got up. Young master, you don't have to worry about me. My old bones are getting stronger the more I move. If I lie in bed all day, I will fall sick. Young master, you should rest first. I will go back to the workshop to make arrangements. Li Zishuan hurriedly got up to send him off. After a moment, Faubert disappeared from the sight of the couple. Han Yushi said, Hubby, why aren't you resting? Do you want me to find? Before she could finish the words, Li Zishuan had already covered her mouth with his hand. Hey, you! What nonsense are you talking about? Let's go. Let's go back. Sleeping alone is better than sleeping. No way. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.